Wow, thank you, Wyatt, for that wonderful introduction.
Yeah.
It's episode 56, I think, of Plat Chat VALORANT. No?
Wait, is it?
I don't know. Why would it not be? I believe I've done my research properly.
Or what episode number is it?
I'm pretty sure it's 56. I think you're tripping.
There's show notes on the monitor in front of you that have the...
Yeah, and it says episode 56, but Wyatt likes to disagree with facts and logic.
Okay, I was just making sure.
The problem is, dusT. And also we have we're gonna have two guests on for this show. Actually, very rare double guest scenario. We've got dusT on. We're gonna talk about some North American stuff. Then dusT has to disappear at some point in order to cast the games that are happening later today, actually, as well, which might be going on as you're watching this. And we're gonna get Ryan in to talk about Europe and Korea, because Korea had some games that happened this week that qualified teams to Berlin. So pretty huge. The problem, dusT, with Wyatt is that he thinks there's 56 weeks in a year. So he got confused by 56.
I thought that at a point. I don't think that anymore.
Well, I
now
hope
have
you don't.
the concrete information set in stone since the year, I want to say 0 at this point. Since then,
also,
it's 52
while
weeks.
I'm here, I did want to say Wyatt, of course, huge fan of the award, not yourself, but
Okay.
yeah, I do appreciate it.
Yeah, I get that all the time. That's not the first time I've heard that, and I'll take it.
It's a very prestigious award, the Wyatt's Weekly Award.
Definitely didn't bribe him or give him money or any of those sorts of things live on his stream. None of those things happen.
No, of course not.
I would never. Now, if you want to know one thing important about me, Josh, I would never take a bribe or like a payment for like an exchange.
I'll go even further than that.
Okay.
I'll go even further. You would never be a fan of a team or predict a team,
right?
Even if there was just the inference that you might get money afterwards. There's nothing concrete, but if you let me just use a wild example. We know that TSM has a really rabid fan base.
Yeah, they do.
And you would never be pandering towards that fan base in the hope that there was monetary gains coming your way afterwards.
I'm here to tell my truth, Josh. And I'm here to tell the truth as well. An objective reality about TSM. Yeah, for instance,
Sure, just as a random example.
Yeah, it's regardless of the number of fans that they have that I can siphon onto my stream, convert to subscribers, and get fucking rich. That has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do. Okay,
so context there for anyone who didn't watch last week's episode. We had Vanity on, and these two, Vanity and Wyatt, were convinced, and I spoke to Vanity recently as well, and Vanity is still convinced that TSM, yes he is, that TSM is going to be able to beat Envy. Now, that was a hot take, I would say, before Envy signed Yay.
I really don't think it was that hot of a take. I think that it's one of those perfect storm scenarios.
I think
that's what it looked like to me.
It was at least a warm take. They're not the favorites,
Oh, no, they're definitely not the favorites, but I think that they have a great chance of winning that game against an Envy who I don't think were at their greatest this year. I think they were just kind of, I said it last week, I thought that Envy were looking kind of cool in regards to their individual play at the moment. I was worried about how Mummy would stack up against Wardell, because though I do think Mummy is an excellent player, I don't think he's been as consistent recently as Wardell has been for TSM. That was a worrying factor for me. I think that the TSM, they're on the hot streak. They're peaking at the right time. The new players are clicking. It's just one of those moments for them.
Right. Well, I want to.
Now everything's changed. So,
yeah. Well, in order to set the context for Yay being signed, dusT, what do you think of the idea of that? Like coming in before Yay is added to the Envy roster, what did you think Envy's chances were of, going on a run, qualifying for Berlin? They have Sentinels in their side of the bracket. What were you thinking of when you're getting ready to cast their games without Yay?
Yeah, I mean, I still would have picked Envy to make it to Berlin regardless. I think that they are probably, outside of Sentinels, the most consistent team in the region. I mean, they very rarely place outside of the top 5 in any single tournament that they attend. It's been like that all year, like a series of 4th place finishes. It's always seemingly being one of the top 3 or top 4 teams in the region. Haven't really had too many struggles, I feel like, throughout this year. It seems like every stage they've been able to handle things pretty well. They've made it to the top. I mean, obviously they didn't make it to Iceland, but
there is a big difference, dusT, between top 3 and top 4 in this tournament. That literally is the decider between going to Berlin or not going to Berlin.
Sure, but I think that if you just look at how things have been shaping up throughout this stage, yes, Sentinels is still the #1 guaranteed favorite to make it based on their performances, but I really feel like Envy's probably next after that. If you just like look at what's gone on this stage and who's looked hot, I really feel like Envy's right there in the mix as like potentially #2 behind Sentinels.
Well, okay, as for those kind of opinions beforehand, everyone apart from Vansilli has to admit that things have changed with the addition of Ye. So this really has made a huge difference. I did not think they were going to go for this. I thought that Envy was going to be one of the teams that would miss out on Ye because I just didn't think they were going to be opportunistic enough to sign Ye and replace Mummy straight after they'd qualified. I know that Mike did like an interview on your stream as well. The coach of Envy was talking to you about it. But I do think that there are some level of dangers with signing people after you've got a working system and you look like you're on the way going. There is some you're hoping that it doesn't shift how you play just to add that extra piece. Like there was nothing wrong with Envy. It's like the classic mantra of don't fix it if it ain't broke. It wasn't broken. They're just trying to upgrade. And there is a potential, even if it's slim, for it to look a little wonky as they integrate it.
I mean, as to a point that Mike made, the coach of Envy, when I was talking to him about it being easier to slot in a duelist on the team rather than had they swapped out a critical support player like a Sova, etc., where there's a lot relying on their gameplay in regards to the utility that they're using and how they set players up, etc. It's easier to just slot in a duelist who is going to pop off, kind of like what we saw with Sentinels with 10s just slotting right in. Yeah. I mean, it's effectively going to be the same thing, right? He's just swapping Jett for Jett, but a higher level of in-game impact in regards to the fragging on Ye being the goal. So I don't think it's going to be I don't think it's that hard to slot in a new duelist compared to the other roles.
Sure.
And I do think that I am really glad that they made this move at this time, though, because I really think that you're right. It's like there's nothing, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. But also, I don't know, they needed to upgrade eventually because they never looked like they were going to really win a serious tournament. They were a top consistent team, and they deserve a lot of credit for that. But they haven't actually come close when it counted in one of these finals so far this year, or even late last year. They've been consistent top 4 since like Pop Flash, which is amazing.
That is,
it's an excellent feat. But if they wanted to take it to the next level and be a world top contender, actually vying for wins, they needed to make this move. And actually, I think this was the perfect time because honestly, I really do think that they were kind of cooling off and they would have started to slip a little bit. Not like some drastic amount where they'd be outside of like the top 8 or something, but there are too many other good teams coming up that they needed to make this move now. I'm very happy with it.
And I think it actually works out pretty well because like the other key piece of context to kind of add to all this is they were already transitioning anyway with the roles within the team, right? When Marv comes on board, that freed up Mummy to be more of the primary Jett of the team as opposed to just playing on a couple of mats and having to play a lot of Omen and kind of fill some other roles on the team. So they're already, as a team, making that transition to having a primary controller come in, to have someone start really going heavy-handed on, Jett across the entire map pool as opposed to just being like a specialist pick. So that was already kind of playing in their favor. And on top of that, they didn't have to play this most recent, they haven't played in like a month, right? Like I think the last time they played would have been, mid-July. So that gives them that time to focus on making the roster transition as opposed to having to worry about, necessarily just preparing for specific matches coming up. They had one match they had to prepare for, which is one they're about to play today to get ready for. So I think that in that sense, the timing was almost as good as it could have been. The only way it could have been better is if you would have waited until the offseason after Berlin's already over. But then you risk Ye going somewhere else at that point. And it kind of goes back to
that point.
Yeah, and it goes back to what Wyatt was saying. It's like, you might be a consistent, top 3, top 4 team in the region, but this is the blockbuster move that could actually start helping you challenge for #1. This gives you that star level player who is consistently putting up big numbers. That gives you that carry type player that you can kind of build around and maybe take that next step forward. I mean, what other move would have come around that Envy could have taken, advantage of. Like, it's hard to know, like, if another player would have been there for them, a month from now, 2 months from now, after Berlin's over. So I think that this is the move to make. It was I mean, it's somewhat risky, but it's like the perfect level of it, I feel like.
Yeah. And let's be clear, there wouldn't have been a better move coming around. I don't think there's any chance of it. Like, he's one of the hottest free agents we've had on the market for ages. He is a player that has been performing at an elite level on Andbox, despite the fact that they haven't really been doing that well. And now that team is out of LCQ opportunities, he would have been snapped up instantly. I'm sure. I mean, the way that George Geddes was reporting on this as well was that there were multiple organizations in talks to try and buy.
I mean, if
Envy don't drop the bag, he's already gone probably.
He was getting several offers, as far as I know, and as well as what Mike said, he wanted to go to Envy, which makes sense. I mean, they're obviously. They are the best team that he could have possibly gone to. So, I mean, it all adds up.
Was there any report about the other teams that were interested? I assume
Cloud9 were.
Right.
I don't know.
I think George admitted that he wasn't going to say, just to keep relations good. I think it's like a comment that he made on Twitter.
We'll definitely talk about that Vanity news.
By process of elimination, you could probably figure it out, right? I mean, obviously, I think like Sentinels and XSET probably are pretty happy with what they've got. And then outside of that, I feel like any other top 10 team besides maybe 100 Thieves would have probably had to consider it.
I'm sure.
Do we want to look at the bracket?
Well, no, before we move on to that, I do want to touch on something else here, which is that a lot of how Envy have set up and the player that is like seeking fights for them wasn't necessarily Mummy, right? They didn't have that like aggressive Jett player that they built around. It was more so Victor that they were building around a lot, especially if we think even further back when they weren't even playing a Jett on a lot of their maps. And they're playing like around sometimes a completely Jettless composition with Caboose and Victor. So I feel like a lot of their strat book, maybe not recently since they've transitioned with Mummy, but historically has been built around Victor. What do you think the consequence of this move is going to be on his shoulders? He's probably going to be picking up the Sky, I would imagine, for this tournament and playing quite a lot of that. That seems to be the way of things for all of these like former Phoenix players from North America. And whereas we saw, Android taking the front seat when he was partnered with Ye, I don't really see that being the case on Envy. I think Ye is absolutely going to be the people they feed, recon darts to, and he's got the drone to be able to push out with. He's got all of these resources going to be funneled into him, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Does this affect how Victor's going to be able to get value on this Envy squad, do you think?
I don't necessarily think so. I mean, I think a bit of that is dependent on him as to how good his Sky is going to look at the moment, because in the past, he has had trouble picking up. He's played a bunch of different agents in the past, but it's always circled back to mainly his Phoenix, and as of recent, his Rays looked really good in the last tournament. But it's always kind of circled back to those particular agents, and when he's gone on more of the supportive roles, I think that's when you see his poor tendencies come out, which is where he kind of can't help himself, but then he's on a supportive role, and he just goes down with his utility being used for self, not setting up teammates in that way. Though playing a more aggressive Sky is it's pretty relevant in the meta right now.
Par for the course.
So it really can work, but it's just finding the balance between being able to make individual plays for yourself, but then also properly set up his teammates. I think that it could definitely work with him on the Sky. I wouldn't be surprised if they still run some double duelist type stuff. And if they do, I'm not really concerned about the who's getting the entry stuff. Even if they use the same util to set up Victor, etc., they put the resources into him for entrying and early mid-round playmaking. And then if Ye does a similar amount of AWPing to Mummy, and he's more of a late round force, I think that's fine. Right? He's one of the guys in the retake and post-plant scenarios that's going to typically be alive, because he's, early mid-round, he's going to be posted up on a position with the AWP, something like that. I think that's reasonable. And also that doesn't mean that they can't, decide, okay, this round we are going to make an early round play, taking up position with this AWP, playing around Ye. So...
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think Ye provides a pretty good amount of diversity where the team can do a lot of different things around it. For starters, Ye doesn't have to play Jett necessarily. I imagine that's what he's going to do primarily, but I mean, you can put him on a stage. You can put him in other directions if you want to give Victor a little bit more comfort with playing a duelist, but still have the impact of Ye, depending on the map and just depending on the meta. So I think that provides them like a long-term vision of being able to be a little bit more flexible going forward. But even going back to the whole Victor thing, the last time he played Skye was way back in April. Skye's a very different agent than back then as far as how she's utilized, how her utility works.
Yeah.
So I think that while he did struggle playing Skye in the past, I think that with the changes that Skye has seen, I think it's going to be a little bit easier for him to make that transition. They want to go that route. And guess what? You also have the option to just go KO if you don't want to play Skye and you still want some type of initiation and
You're on
not
the KO copium
competition.
You're on the KO copium. Oh no!
I mean,
no! Same
I think
as
Skye's better. I think Skye's better, but let's just say for whatever reason, you know, Victor struggles to play it. Then it's not as if you can't put him other ways. And again, it's not as if you can't just play double duelists. Like Ryze and FaZe have shown how effective double duelists can be. While a lot of other teams have gone the route of Skye, like an Xset, for example, some other teams have stuck to double duelists and still been very competitive. You know, Ryze and FaZe come to mind, so they could do that on Envy. They have the talent to do that. I mean, dude, can you imagine like the double duelist combination of Ye and Victor? I mean, that's like one of the most powerful 1-2 punches in the region.
Yeah, that is absurd. It is. Yeah, I was thinking last night actually because I was like thinking about the Vision Strikers team. I was watching some VODs of them, and I was like, damn, these guys are insane. Like they might be the best duelist duo at Berlin. And then I thought, wait a fucking second, what am I saying? I'm saying that they might be better than Tens and Sick and Ye and Victor. Like those, North America's got some absurd talent that could end up making it to Berlin as well. And these two are 100% up there. I have one more topic that I wanted to get your thoughts on before we transition away from talking about Envy, and that's Mummy, because I think Mummy's the core Envy fan base has focused very much on Mummy being replaced, the same as Caboose being replaced, because those are two very, very talented players that Envy has now taken not just to the bench, but has a cut essentially to try and fix or upgrade their roster. And so the inside world of Envy fans are like, oh, I love Mummy, why are you cutting him, etc., without realizing how incredible Ye is. But I feel like a lot of the outside of the Valorant scene is just focused on Ye and how good Ye is and how much sense it makes. So I do want to give it just a moment here to talk about Mummy. How good is this guy? Will he find another team on will he find another top 10 home, and who should be looking for him to pick up? What's your thoughts here?
I mean, a testament to how good he is that the only person that could replace him is Ye. I mean, who else would you even possibly consider replacing him with right now, right?
Buy Tens out of his contract.
He had to, I mean,
spend $7 million.
His replacement is, you know, a potential god tier talent in the game.
Yeah,
that is who they've replaced him with. So that is a testament in itself as to how high of a level he plays at.
Yeah.
I think also there's a lot to be said about him as a teammate for this team over the past year, given that he's been pretty selfless with he'll play whatever role that they needed. He was always willing to fill on whatever they needed, and he was competent on a number of different roles for them at different times. I think that that gives him an immense amount of value on the free agent market. I think there are a lot of teams that could use a player like him who can competently fill so many different roles, also bring a high level of fragging. Also, when he is on with the op, I mean, he is fucking crazy at opping. He hits the hard to hit shots with such a high level of consistency. It's ridiculous. It's the actual Half-Life deathmatch aim where he's like flick shotting people, jets dashing above him. He's fucking flick shot. He's got insane aim. I really do rate him very highly as a player, and only someone like Ye could replace him on this team. I think he absolutely should be on another top 10 team, and a lot of teams should be looking to get a player like him.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, like, it is true that there were some occasions this year where he did go missing against some of like the other fellow top 5 teams in the region, like against like a Sentinels or an Xset. He would definitely have some off games, and you know, that was even when he was allowed to play the Jett more often, which you would think would kind of encourage him and kind of boost him up a little bit to let him get back into that and be that playmaker. So that is like one thing that kind of concerned me a little bit about him overall. But when you look at his overall track record just throughout his career, The fact that he is still a very capable Jett. Maybe he's not like one of the best Jetts in the region anymore, but he's certainly still up there and very capable. Certainly better than some of the Jetts that are in some of the other top 10 teams that are more towards the bottom of the top 10. But not only that, he has that flexibility to be able to play other agents. Like obviously being a controller, he learned Astra pretty quickly and was effective with it. Can still play the Omen, obviously. Has played some Sage in the past as well. So I think that if you're one of these teams that just missed out, like on this top 8 that's going on in Challengers playoffs right now, or even if you don't want to qualifying for Berlin or something along those lines, I mean, I could easily see several different teams looking at him. You know, I think that Gen.G probably is the one that comes to mind like the easiest as far as like one of the teams I think could clearly be looking at him. But I mean, there's several other teams out there that could maybe consider it depending on how this Challengers playoff goes.
Is there any team that jumps to mind for you?
Gen.G could definitely be one. I mean, maybe T1, depending on what they want to do with some of their roster moving forward.
A T1 locked into last chance qualifier? I don't think they are, right?
Idea. But
I can't
like
remember.
an NRG, even depending on, I don't know. I think any team reasonably that has been struggling in that like 8th to 12th area, but or higher. Or those teams.
The one
there
thing
that
I would say though is a lot of those teams need leadership. I feel like as a fix, and which Mummy isn't the in-game leader, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean,
that's the only real problem.
I mean, that is a that is a problem for I mean, that is an issue for a number of teams. But
sure,
in regards to the teams that need, I don't know, players who can play a number of roles or play the support roles effectively and still frag to some extent. I don't know. I think, there's just a number of teams in that area that could.
I think it'll just depend on what he wants to do. Like, what does he want to focus on going forward? Like, does he want to continue to be like that flex guy? Does he want to fully transition to being more of a controller type player? Does he want to really go all in and be like a Jett opper for another team in a region where Jett opping is really highly valued? I think that kind of plays into it as well. But he may just be like, well, it just depends on what's on the table, right? I think he's probably a smart enough guy to kind of, realize that he has to probably be a little bit flexible. But yeah, I think he'll be on a top 10 team in a matter of a few months.
I guess maybe my last point, but I actually really liked when he was playing Omen and opping. I know it was a little bit awkward to some extent, but I think that's kind of the perfect role for him because I don't think he's necessarily the guy, like the star player for your team, but when he's in the supportive role where he can still have games where he's just going to carry you with the op when he's on, I like him in that kind of role. I think Jetts are oversaturated. There are a million of them out there, and having a guy like him who can provide a lot of value on a control, like playing Omen and opping, I like that. I don't know.
You want to see the Astra op come back?
Maybe not the Astra op, but I liked him when he was on Omen. Genuinely, he was really performing well with that.
Well, let's take another look at the NA bracket. So we do want to revisit this because unlike Van Silly, we update our opinions based on new evidence that is presented before us. so if we take a look at the NA bracket preds, I think the biggest one obviously is the NVTSM game, but I think there's also a decent argument for taking another look at NV Sentinels and thinking about that in a brand new light as well.
Listen,
because Sentinels, did you see the stats that Shaz has streamed 50 hours this week?
No. Oh my God. Listen, that's
like
the Pokemon buff.
They've been grinding streaming.
That's the playing with Pokemon buff that he's got.
Like they have clearly not been. Sentinels are locked into champions. I don't want to put this out as like I am, saying that this was a stupid move from Sentinels or they need to be scrimming more, etc., etc. They've already locked in their end of the year
this guy
plans.
Hates Sentinels.
And
Sentinels fans, you're welcome on my stream.
Whose bracket is this?
They are
is this a collective bracket?
Obviously a favorite for top 3. This was our bracket. Well, I say our bracket.
Wait, did we already submit it?
Can you update it?
Did you really let Van Silly shoehorn a TSM pick over Envy?
It wasn't just Van Silly, let me tell you, dust.
No way.
Wyatt was the TSM apologist.
Why do people think it was that crazy?
Get out of here, bro.
I think
I'm not good. I don't want to talk about this for 20 minutes. But
no.
Okay.
So results oriented rather than just looking at the current statuses of the teams.
I
swear TSM.
But what's your results parameter? Right? Like, are you literally just going off of like this stage only?
Yeah, they're forming.
Or are you looking at the collective?
Their form in the past month. I mean, it's obviously not relevant to look at TSM when they didn't have Leviathan in the past. Yeah, they were shit. It's just a totally different team than we've seen in the past.
Oh
month.
Yeah, they looked really good this stage. Don't get me wrong.
That's my whole thing. they're in that zone where everything clicks at once. I still think they're going to perform really well, but their Berlin chances way lower. I mean, and also the NV confidence just has to be at an all-time high. Yeah, I mean,
did you see the tweets about their scrims? Just the fact that Valorant fans buy into those tweets blows my mind.
Oh, it is unreal, isn't
it? The pros are just tweeting bullshit about scrims.
Bro, I have never seen a more thirsty subreddit in my life to just take literally any little piece of anything on social media and blowing it up into like a 200 upvoted thread. Like it's some type of gospel.
It's very amusing to me.
It's unbelievable, man. Like people jump on just anything. People are so thirsty in the scene, bro. It's unreal.
I mean, I think Envy are going to win TSM. Okay. I still think TSM should put up a good fight. Right. But unfortunately now, this is still, I mean, we were talking about it last time, how this NV TSM, like both of their roads are just intertwined.
Yes, in theory, yeah.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, that's pretty bad for TSM now. I mean, unfortunately, that is pretty rough for them.
And by the way, that would assume that NV loses to Sentinels because that, I think, is the other topic of conversation here. If we're assuming that NV with the addition of Ye is going to have a much larger advantage than they previously would have done over TSM, NV Sentinels, especially if we're not sure what the form of Sentinels is going to be like. We know historically they're an amazing team. They're the best team in North America. That doesn't mean that every single day throughout the year they're the best team and they're always going to win every single match. You don't get that level of consistency all the time from any team.
Yeah, so, it's tough because, I mean, the only blemish on their record this stage was losing a series to XSET, and they dropped a mat to them as well, I guess you could say, in a grand finals that we debate how much we should really put in something like that anyway. But I will say, just like from watching their games against XSET, because I was covering some of those, they did just look like a little off. Like some of their timings and like just some of their like ways that they handled some of those mid-round situations, they just seemed like they weren't completely on the same page in some of those games. And that's why they wound up losing. I mean, they lost Haven twice after having like a substantial like win record on that map prior to that.
Yeah.
So watching them slip on Haven a little bit was definitely something to kind of look at. And just generally speaking, I feel like they just didn't look as sharp. You know, normally they're a team that commits really well, whether they're going fast or slow. They're really able to just like react and just go. They're very decisive, and obviously they have a high skill ceiling to capitalize with that style. But yeah, something just looked like a little shaky in some of their games this stage. But I don't know if that was just that day, if it's something to really be concerned about long term.
I mean, I don't think anything's concerning long term with Sentinels if you think long enough. But
yeah,
we're not really thinking that long term if we're discussing these matches. I think Sentinels are the obvious, like, you know, historic favorites. But in terms of their form coming in here, my gut is wanting me to buy into the NV stonks, you know? And, like, the fact that Sentinels maybe aren't taking it seriously, or not, maybe taking it seriously is the wrong way to put this, but aren't putting a huge amount of time and effort into winning all of these games because they're just assuming they're going to be able to make at least top 3 and go to Berlin. I don't think Sentinels are as determined to come in and stomp through the bracket, whereas I know that Envy, with the new addition, will just want to get in day one. If you think about it, the Envy TSM game and the Sentinels Envy game are all happening on the same day. It's happening today, like right now. So Envy have already prepped for Sentinels. They're not prepping for Rise, they're prepping for Sentinels as soon as they beat TSM.
The prophecy.
I mean, your prophecy aside, they're prepping for Sentinels. It makes me want to buy in, but I know then that I am the same as the people on Reddit who are just like, Sentinels aren't swimming, they're going to lose. And yet those voices echo in my own head.
I think it has more to do with I don't know, the level of Envy confidence, that nice rejuvenating feeling when you get that new guy in the team and everything. Yeah, I mean, it is genuinely a major factor, I feel, in these scenarios, which is part of why I was feeling good about TSM. It's that perfect storm. And now with Envy, they got a new guy in who's going to drop 30 kills every game. Everyone's feeling good. The confidence is high. I'm honestly, I really don't know where to go with this NV7 game now. I am very torn. I mean,
what do you think, Dust?
I'm very confident they'll be TSM now.
It's definitely tough, right? Because it comes down to like how well does the team adapt to Ye? Because they've only been able to practice with them for like 1 or 2 weeks, maybe. Coming
6 days.
6 days,
I think.
Right.
Yeah. So
when you did the interview, that was the first day they had started scrimming.
Yeah, that was on like what was that? It was on Friday, I think. And Mike told me that they had signed him that morning. Right. It was Thursday, actually, last Thursday.
Okay.
And he had just been signed that morning, and when I talked to Mike, they just practiced for the first time.
So they've had 6-7 days. That's not long.
It's not long. And even if you come out and say that, oh, this is like an easier transition because it's duelist for duelist, so it's like same for same, and so we don't have to like really change that much. We just have to kind of learn a little bit about what type of picks he likes to take and, what type of timings that he likes, and then kind of get him involved in our system. While that may be true, like, on 6 days, I feel like that really becomes extreme. Like maybe if you had like 2 or 3 weeks, then yeah, I could see that argument and I could see that it probably wouldn't be too big of a factor. But with it only being 6 days, it does make me a little bit more concerned for this matchup against Sentinels. Like in general, I think they're still going to qualify for Berlin. That's, without question. But I think that against Sentinels, as long as Sentinels are coming in as the Sentinels that we usually know, I do think that, the problem for me is I feel like Envy's had a couple of maps kind of go by the wayside here recently, if you really think about it. Yeah, it is true that Sentinels have had their issues with Haven lately in like some of their most recent matchups, but I feel like there's been a couple of maps that Envy have also struggled on the rail. Like for one, we don't know about their Breeze, right? Their Icebox has certainly struggled recently. And they have like one other map that they've had some issues on as well. I can't think off the top of my head. I think it may have been Ascent or something where they've had some like shaky results lately, like kind of 50-50. So there's been a few maps in their pool, plus a roster change. I don't know that I can not take Sentinels here.
What do you think?
I don't know.
It's so hard to pick against Sentinels until they give you a reason not to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is how I normally think. And yet in this fucking moment, I really want to punt on Envy. It is. Yeah. I mean, the smart pick historically is to just always bet on Sentinels, and you'll be right eventually. It's just at what point in the bracket you'll be right,
I'm telling you, that Envy map pool is a little bit concerning. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, and I don't want to get overblown in the Ye hype. He's a great player, but I don't think he's just gonna drop 40 on Sentinels and hard carry Envy through it. I don't think that is what's the most likely outcome of this game. What are you going for, Wyatt? What are you going for?
Are you just waiting for me
to
say
I'm just waiting for you. I'm just waiting for you.
Hold on. I'm trying to think here. Here's the... man.
I can't resist a good upset. I can never resist.
Okay.
Here's my thing. Hold on.
Okay.
Let's think about this a little bit, right?
Don't want to.
Sentinels do play Breeze. They've shown that they can play it.
Yeah.
So it's up to Envy whether or not they're going to let that through or not.
Right.
Because if they do ban Breeze because they don't want to play it because they have only played it like once or something like that, then all of a sudden you're probably looking at a chance for Icebox to come into play, which is going to favor Sentinels for sure. And then at that point you have to figure out who wins Haven, right? Do you take Sentinels, who have historically been amazing on Haven? It's like their bread and butter. Or do you say, okay, they've lost Haven a couple times to Xset. Maybe that's a little bit vulnerable, and we know that Envy are certainly capable of playing Haven. I feel like it comes down to that map. I think it comes down to Haven.
Dude, I'm going with
in my
Envy.
Opinion.
I'm punting on him. I'm punting on him.
I'm with you.
All right.
I can't resist. I can't resist a good punt.
dusT is the voice of reason, and I appreciate that.
There needs to be someone.
There has to be the voice of reason.
There has to be one voice of reason.
I tried. I really did. I really did try. I tried to bring in like figures and stats and like.
I appreciate it. You brought out every argument.
I tried. I really did.
Every argument in the book. I want to move on though to talk about the 100 Thieves phase game, because even though we shouldn't really be looking at that again in the bracket, that was the game on one of these websites. I can't remember whether it was VLR or Spike, that the fans voted was most one-sided. That it had the most picks for 100 Thieves out of any of the quarterfinals matches. And I don't think that's accurate. So I just wanted to get your a heat check on both of you as well. More one-sided than Sentinel's Rise, apparently, was 100 Thieves phase. Maybe that's just all the 100 Thieves fans. It's got to be, right? Because if you objectively look at this, there's way more of a chance, I think, that FaZe wins this game than they're giving it credit for.
Yeah, I said this last week, but I would be...
What's your number? Like, what's your
I can't remember what it was. I think it was like...
I
think it was 21% or something. Might have been 12. I can't remember.
Well, okay, let's put it to this. Like, so you already picked 100 Thieves to beat FaZe, right, on this bracket. So, like, what percent do you give them? Like, you think 60% chance that they win, 70% chance that they win? Like, what number are you giving it?
I'd say it's like a 65, something like that.
Yeah,
65, 35?
Yeah,
I think that's pretty fair.
I think that's pretty reasonable. Yeah,
I think that's pretty fair. Nearly double the chance of FaZe, I think, to be able to win this game.
I think I said it last time, but if both 100 Thieves and XSET win those 2 lower bracket games, I would be honestly surprised. Yeah. I think those 2 games are just ripe for upsets.
Upsets are inevitable in these brackets as well. It's just hard to pinpoint exactly where they happen.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are upsets in Valorant all the time. And those are 2 of the teams. FaZe and LG are 2 of the teams where if their stars just show up, they can just run over a team. I mean, we've seen it happen a million times. I think one of those games surely is going to be an upset, right? And if they're not, I think then 100 Thieves and XSET are probably both going to be in prime form. And this bracket's going to be pretty crazy to get down to the top 3.
What else do we need to relook at now that we've gone with NV?
Well, we got to look at the lower bracket.
What does the lower bracket
Yeah, we got to see what the lower
like?
bracket looks like now.
Okay, so we'd have Rise TSM. We already predicted... well, actually, no, we didn't. We had Envy dropping down there. But I would still predict TSM over Rise, I think. They've been on a hot streak recently. They performed better than Rise when it came to the actual tournament too. So now you've got XSET TSM to make it to... Oh, no, that's not to make it to Berlin. That's...
To make it...
it would be the lower round.
To make it to lose to Sentinels.
To 3rd, 4th place.
This lower bracket's gonna be spicy as shit, by the way, man.
It is.
I mean,
also
this on the line.
This could be 100 Thieves TSM as well, because you could see 100 Thieves facing off against XSET and XSET taking the win. Like that could absolutely happen.
If 100 Thieves and XSET both win those games, that game in the semi to me is like 50-50.
Yeah,
I don't know how to call that. I even think XSET TSM is really tough. I mean, maybe that's like...
It is tough.
Yeah. I don't know, like maybe you can give it like
TSM looking stronger now. It makes that matchup more
but
interesting.
Even still, that's a really tough... I mean, I think Sentinels beat FaZe Clan because they always beat FaZe Clan.
Yeah.
They just have FaZe's number.
Yeah.
If FaZe suddenly turn around and won an upset against Sentinels now, that would be pretty wild.
It almost seems unfair to even predict this lower round 2 because I'm going to pred Sentinels in the lower bracket round 3. There's no shot that I'm predicting Sentinels not making it to Berlin. Even if they lose to Envy, I just feel... confident, safe, secure, held in the warm, loving arms of Dapper that they're making it to Berlin.
Josh, here's a spicy thing, though. Let's say XSET beats TSM and they play against Sentinels for the spot.
Yeah.
Think about how that matchup played out in Challengers.
Yeah, think about how it played out in the finals. Sentinels are whacking them.
No, I think Sentinels are winning, but I just think it could be an interesting matchup because of like the trading that they had in Challengers. And honestly, XSET looked damn good, bro. I think Zekins fit in perfectly. BCJ is like one of the best Sovas in the region. Like they look so good. And now they have like Def for that experienced player on the team to help. I don't know, man. Like XSET looks so good. I'm
really hoping that XSET have improved since their prior showing in Challengers too, because there's such a new roster and they've only just added Def. I feel like they were only at the beginning of fleshing out their playbook and what they want to do and setting up protocols for their attack side in particular. So I really hope that XSET continue to build on that and don't just flop. Because last time they went to a Challengers finals, they shit the bed. If they do it again, it's going to become a fucking meme. Because at this point, like, how do you even fix that? You know, if you've added Def and Zekin and you still flop, that's just...
I'm buying in on XSET. I'm on the XSET stocks. I don't know, man.
Yeah, no,
I like watching them play this last stage. I like them.
The problem is, they almost need to win the game against 100 Thieves in order to qualify for LAN, because I just don't believe they're getting through Sentinels in the lower bracket.
Even if
no one's getting through Sentinels in the lower bracket.
I just can't see
I can't believe Sentinels is in the lower bracket right now for you guys. They're
going to activate. If Sentinels are in the lower bracket, they're just going to activate and win. And
it's a classic narrative, dusT. You know, it's a story as old as time. Sentinels lower bracket run. All right, let's go for XSET, and then we'll pred Sentinels against them, and then... fucking who cares in the seeding games, honestly. Envy wins, and then Sentinels beats them in the grand final, whatever.
Okay.
You know, something like that.
Still hoping FaZe make it.
The
content.
Could happen. FaZe only need to beat 100 Thieves and then XSET, you know?
Yeah.
They could be through today by the time you're watching this episode. Let's move on to our next topic, though. Our last one for North America, really, is the report of George Geddes which was that Vanity is set to join Cloud9 Blue. And to put this as accurately as possible, I believe George Geds reported that he is in deep negotiations to join. I don't believe there was a report that he's put pen to paper and actually signed with them yet.
Yeah.
He's just set to join. I don't think there's also been any word on who is going to be removed if Vanity joins.
No, in
the
fact,
roster.
they're playing a tournament right now with a regular 5.
But Mitch has transitioned to Smokes.
Yeah.
Which would indicate to me that they're trying to do the IGL switcheroo.
Which obviously would make the most sense, right?
I mean, think so.
Slot in Vanity for Mitch.
Yeah. I mean, IGLs are a hot commodity right now in North American Valorant. You don't have too many like traditional IGLs in the scene. A lot of people kind of just started doing it out of necessity. They didn't really have a track record of doing it in their previous games that they played, particularly Counter-Strike. Vanity is that guy, though. He's like one of those guys that is out there that is a tenured IGL, that's worked with Steel in the past, that's run successful Counter-Strike teams, that took a version 1 team that, let's be honest, like was kind of parts that slipped through the cracks at the end of last year, you know, that were on other top 10 teams, but then kind of found themselves on the bench, and he kind of brought these parts together and honestly made a run I wouldn't have expected. Like, I didn't have version 1 pick to go to Iceland, like at last stage. You know, I thought that they were like a decent team, but I didn't think they would make it all the way. So he definitely increased his value a ton with what he was able to accomplish last stage with version 1. And look, I didn't think that version 1 long-term was going to be like a top 5 team in the region. Like, I really think some of these other teams we've discussed are probably more likely to be consistently like amongst the top and qualifying for Berlin spots. I mean, V1 obviously already out. So I think this is like the perfect time for Vanity to make the move. He's already increased his stock really high based on how he performed last stage with this team. And I don't think that V1 was going anywhere long-term, in my opinion. So I think that this is a fantastic move for all parties involved. Like, Cloud9 needs something to stabilize them.
This is also reuniting with other people that were involved in the Chaos group.
Yeah, Zeppa and Leaf.
Yep. Yeah, with CS. And Coach MCE is now on the free market as well. And it just looks like he's going to be involved, I would imagine.
Yeah, it looks like it.
It makes perfect sense thematically for Vanity to join up with Zeppa Leaf and then add MCE in. And you've got the coach, you've got 3 players that were involved in that squad, and you should have a nasty fucking roster.
Yeah, and they I'm praying keep poise in this team. But yeah, I mean that is just what Cloud9 need, right? I mean, last time we talked about them, they have all the talent in the world, right?
Yeah.
Leaf, clearly one of the top players in NA at the moment. Poise, a ton of potential, I think. I think he's an excellent upcoming player. They just were lost in regards to the actual plan, right? I mean, that's kind of where we were sat with it.
Completely agree.
And this is exactly what they need, right?
Well, the thing about it being like the obvious perfect fit, it obviously does make sense. You add in Vanity, you get a really good IGL that understands the game, has had fantastic success before, is very good in high pressure scenarios, all of that stuff. But it does funk with some of the roles a little bit, because since Floppy has been benched on this team or disappeared or whatever the fuck is going on, they have been moving people around, and if Vanity comes in to play Smokes for them, you would imagine that, I mean, they were playing recently with Zeta playing Sentinel and Zeppa on Sova, because Mitch is normally their Sentinel player. And so if you're playing a Sentinel in these comps, and sometimes they don't, then you're really lacking that player that has historically played that role on the team. If you're running with the 5-man of Poise, Leaf, Zeppa, Vanity, and then...
I think there's like a path that makes sense, right? I think you have Poise stay on the Jett as in a duelist. I think you have Vanity come in as a controller. I think you put Zeta back on Sova. I think that you likely are going to put Zeppa on like that secondary duelist flex type role, like a KO, Sky. You know, he's already been playing some of that a little bit in some of their most recent games. So I feel like
but then
there's
that
definitely...
shifts Leaf over to playing like the Sentinel kind of shit, which I think is an outrageous waste of his talent. You know, if you have Poise on this team, he is going to play the Jett role for you. And then Leaf is either going to play Smokes or the secondary, like, duelist or even Sky.
Oh, yeah, then you put Zeppa in, like, I guess, another role.
Right, and Zeppa does seem to be the kind of 5th guy that they're trying to find a role for.
He's still in that awkward spot where he switched over to the game late, and he's trying to, I think, both figure out what he wants to play and is good at, but also will work with the team.
Yeah,
he's been switching around.
I mean, I haven't watched I didn't watch Zeppa play Sova, so I'm not really sure how he took to that.
I don't know whether there was even a VOD available. They played in some NSG tournament. I think they lost a map to a complete amateur team, but they're not playing with Vanity yet. They've just swapped around all of their roles, and so it's.
Could you bring that up, Kurt? The VLR page.
Here's the
Cloud9 VLR page.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It's tough because I mean, Vanity has like a handful of games on Sentinels, so I don't know if that's something.
Yeah, the game against TLP.
Just open the TLP.
I don't know, man. I'm trying to figure out a way to like force it in. I don't know.
I mean, the thing is,
I think someone's gonna have to make a sacrifice.
Yeah, someone is, and that's what I want to bring up here as well. Is it seems from the outside like a perfect logical move. Like, of course, Vanity would be amazing for the team, but it isn't as smooth as it might first appear. I would say, because it does still require some role reshufflings inside the team, or at least finding some compositions that will work. You don't have to play with a Sentinel on every map. You can find comps that would work for a team that don't include that. So that might be the direction that they go in. Maybe Zeppa just picks up Viper and they play without a Killjoy and Cypher in a lot of these maps, and they just try and play Viper comps all over the place. Something like that could be what they end up opting for.
I mean, it's helpful that Zeta's shown a lot of flexibility, so I think that'll be kind of the person that they can kind of move around to kind of make everything else fit. So that's kind of like the one thing that gives me hope that they'll be able to figure it out is Zeta's flexibility.
And this was the map where they had those particular roles, but I would imagine that this is probably still a conversation that's going on within the team. Yeah. There doesn't seem to be any transparency in the rules from what I can see so far about what happens if they are tied at 50 points. So I'm leaping ahead here. Cloud9 are making these changes for last chance qualifiers, right? That's what you make a change like this for. I would speculate that one of the reasons that Vanity hasn't immediately signed is because Cloud9 don't know whether they're in last chance qualifiers yet. They have 50 points, Gen.G have 50 points, and there is a strong likelihood that they could be tied at the 8th and 9th spot together, where one of them doesn't go to last chance qualifiers. And as far as I can see, there's nothing in the rule set that dictates how you break that tie between them. In Southeast Asia, the tiebreaker is Stage 3 performance of the teams that got points in Stage 3. But neither of those teams got points in Stage 3, so I'm not sure whether that's the same tiebreaker. If it was the same tiebreaker, and it's based on how far in the bracket you got in Stage 3, Gen.G would win, and Cloud9 would not make champions if Rise and TSM both get any extra points. So you could very easily be in a situation if Rise and TSM get past the first round in the bracket, where Cloud9 are shit out of luck, and maybe this move falls through because maybe Vanity does want to play in version 1 because they have a chance of making champions via last chance qualifier. So things are still unnecessarily opaque in the North American circuit points scene at the moment. It's very odd.
Yeah.
Because there's just no
Vanity would go no matter what, no matter the point situation, in my opinion. Like, maybe he plays out with version 1, but I think he's still gone long term.
Right, because
like, that's just the way I feel. Just if you think about everything else, like
that kind of thing,
the synergy of the former teammates from Chaos, and like just probably like the salary that's going to come with it. I think that he's going to go no matter what.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah,
seems very likely.
I think there's enough reasons to go. And one of the
I think that whole Zelsa situation that happened really soured that. I feel like when you have that type of situation come up that burns you, I feel like that had to take a hit on him.
Wait, what do you mean? Oh, you mean in terms of Chaos at the end of North American CS?
No, I just meant like I just feel like, for one, I think the team performance-wise, like, isn't as consistent just because they made it to Iceland. Like, I think that's one problem long-term for V1 that Vanity's probably weighing up. And then I think that, I don't know, man, like, it just seems like even some of the drama that surrounds that team sometimes, because of some of the stupid things that have happened with players getting like suspended and stuff like, I don't know. I feel like that kind of just sours the grapes a little bit on like how attractive that team looks long term. If you're going to continue to run into problems like that going forward, for example.
Well, I know that if I was involved in something and one of my teammates got himself banned from the upcoming tournament, I would definitely be pissed at him. But I don't know exactly what the team dynamic is inside there, but I think that's a very understandable reaction to have to that situation, to be like, what the fuck are you doing? You're throwing away our chances by being a dickhead
that. So
Iceland.
that moment that you're describing could probably be overlooked if you were still super competitive. But they're out. They're not going to Berlin. Sure. And like you said, they're even maybe possibly not going to be like a strong team in the LCQ. So I think that just kind of like you start adding it all up and it's like, man, like what is left for me here that makes sense for me to stay if I feel like I can do better with this other team that, like we've already said, has all the pieces in the world, has a ton of talent. It's just about putting it all together properly. You know, the potential is definitely there. And again, he has formed relations with these people and maybe he's a little bit more comfortable with those people. He knows what to expect from them. So yeah, I think that he goes no matter what is what I'm getting at.
Yep. Certainly seems that way.
Well, the games are coming up. The games may be going on right now, so don't watch this. Go and tune in. But I think that does it. We're going for a slightly shorter episode today, so I think that does it with the North American side of things. But thank you, dusT, for joining us to talk your expertise and enjoy your casting today. What games are you casting? Where can people find you?
Yeah, I'll be on the mainstream here doing Sentinels, Rise, and then I'll be doing the 100 Thieves phase. So I'll be doing those 2 games with Shift.
A banger.
That is.
Yeah, it's going to be a good day.
100 Thieves phase.
100 Thieves phase, man.
That has super banger potential.
Yeah. I don't know what to think about it. I don't know how much. It's impossible to ever have faith in FaZe because they just wake up one morning and they're like, oh, well, I guess I'll just hit all my shots today. And then they're fucking, they could be through today. If they just have a miracle day, they could be through.
That's
how well does that? We've never had that before where it's just the winning team plays again. And you
they're
just
such a wild card. Like, you really never know what you're going to get. So it's a lot of fun to watch them play. And them versus 100 Thieves is absolutely going to be a banger.
Yeah. All right, well, enjoy that game. And we're going to do some movie magic right now. And we're going to sub Ryan in to talk about EU and Korea. See you in a sec.
All right, thanks a lot.
Pow! Movie magic. dusT is gone and Ryan is here. Look at that. Whoa, I'm such a good editor.
What a great segue.
This was all done in post. We'll just fix it in post.
Well done.
Are you just taking the whole credit for the production side of it? Like editing in real time?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm doing all the editing for this show.
Josh has a stream deck on his feet and he just does the whole show there.
Ignore that voice.
That's the voice inside your head.
Back in your cage, producer. That's how it feels.
Yeah, Kurt is the real brains behind the operation. But we're joined here by Ryan, and we're going to talk about some EU stuff, some Korean stuff as well. We wanted to begin here with you reviewing our European bracket, our EMEA playoffs bracket. But when we did the picks for it, they fudged the bracket up, I think.
I don't know what happened, but I know that the way the bracket sorts has changed now. So like the way we had it, like Supermassive Blaze and FPX kept playing each other. That can't be the case anymore.
Okay, good.
So,
good.
Things are going to be different now.
We had Van Silly on Van Sussy last time, who was trying to fuck with our bracket as much as humanly possible. So we want to get some of your input here as well,
Fire
and maybe
to the finals.
Maybe see what you think. So I'll run you through vaguely what we had, right, Ryan? We had Liquid, we had Guild, we had FPX, and I think we had Oxygen taking that game, but I can't actually remember who we picked in the Oxygen Giants.
We picked Giants.
Did we pick Giants?
Yeah, we did.
Okay. What do you think about that game, Ryan? The Oxygen Giants game? That seems to me the closest of the upper round one.
I mean, I was very vocal on my love for Giants in Challenges 2. I think I even mentioned it on Wyatt's stream of being like, keep an eye on them. So like, I do think, however, towards the end, Giants felt a little bit found out. I think is the main thing. I think we've seen it already with like David P looks, haven't we, where it's like they're really effective until they don't work anymore because teams learn how to counter it and David P can't do much.
Yeah.
I think overall, like getting a solid bracket out of this is tough because I just think all of the Turkish teams are just in a vacuum right now. It's hard to contextualize how good they are against some of the slower European teams and obviously CIS as well. So Oxygen, I think for that matchup, Giants have kind of shown everything that they have currently. And Oxygen, they always seem to go further than people maybe expect them to in the first place. So I kind of lean towards Oxygen, but it's hard to really gauge. It's 50-50. So many of these games are.
All right. No, listen, I'm good going with that.
Listen, you can sell me on any upset, and I'll take it.
Okay. We definitely had Ascend in the upper quarterfinals. I believe we also went with Gambit over Guild.
Yes.
And then
still would.
G2 we predicted over Oxygen, and we were having a big discussion about Supermassive Blaze and FPX. Supermassive Blaze, the best team coming out of Turkey, this like attempt at a Turkish super team, and then FPX. Ryan, what's your thoughts? Do you agree with us that Gambit are the favorites over Guild? Guild are an absolutely like consistent team in Europe. They always seem to make it deep. They always have good performances. They crumbled a little bit at the EMEA finals, though they did show us Draken on Yoru, which I'll always be thankful for. What do you think about those two games in the middle of that bracket?
Yeah, I mean, I think those sort of middle games with Supermassive Blaze and FPX, I like that you'd have like Gambit, Guild, SMB, and FPX. They're all teams where it's like, all right, show us what you can really do, because it's always been oh, we've only gone so far, we've fallen at the last hurdle. So I'm curious to see who's going to step up. I think Gambit do always look scary. It's always the same story. They're pooing on people in scrims. And Guild, they always trip up and embarrass themselves at the last second. So I agree that I've got Gambit to win the whole thing.
You've got Gambit to win the whole thing.
Oh, that's the kind of that's what I like to hear.
That's some CIS simping.
And it's like, I'll go for the CIS simping.
That's what I like to hear.
Okay.
Supermassive Blaze. It really is like, I know they're like Blaze and Phoenix, but it really is like hot versus cold, that one, because Supermassive Blaze, like a lot of Turkish teams, play super quickly to begin with. It's like as soon as the round doors open, they're just swinging and taking a fight on like A main, seeing how many players they have left. It's like, oh, we're in a 3 versus 2. Let's go do a default here. And FPX are obviously just going to anti-strat the hell out of that and slow the game down. But I do have FPX winning that one. I think they have no real excuse to lose it, I think, at this point.
Okay.
They're well tenured. They anti-strat very well. Deanbross is very good at knowing his enemy. And SMB, it's still early days. I think as well, just to shout out Fireflux, I think the Fireflux are going to outperform a lot of people's expectations, which is probably that they get eliminated.
Yes,
I know
that would be my expectation.
Like, Supermassive Blaze is the Turkish super team, but I think that Fireflux is like Turkish super team diet, like light. It's not as tenured when it comes to the players. It's certainly not as big when it comes to the overall organization, but they've plucked some really good Turkish players. Salah, the coach from Bonk, which became Guild, and then Honk, which split up and went into various other teams. He's on this team, and they are the most European, if you want to play it like that, like the European team of the Turkey region, which I think going into a bracket like this with teams that like to play slowly is going to work in their favor. I think that's why Oxygen looks so good in stage 2, because they weren't off on the deep end with aggression. So
all right.
I think FPX have a really tough route, because Fireflux, it's almost an expectation that FPX beat them. But if they lose, well, then they've got to come back all the way from that. So
sure, and FPX are really running the Turkish gauntlet there, aren't they? Actually, Guild are doing the same in CIS. They're running a bit of a CIS gauntlet with Forza. I suppose they're not playing against Na'Vi, but they're playing Forza and then Gambit. That's so odd. I didn't see that. Yeah. All right, so let's lock in FPX for that prediction. We'll go with I would have Ascend and then G2 winning these in similar manner to the first qualifier round. But you've got Gambit, huh?
I actually have. I've done the bracket which didn't have Gambit winning it. Now I need to try and like string that along. Like, I think Ascend wins that game. I think Ascend are looking absolutely solid. This one, it looks like it's going to be G2, but you never know. I think it would be Ascend G2 as the first 2 teams to qualify for Berlin. Deservedly so, I think, just with how they've been playing recently.
Yeah, and G2 a little bit more time.
Yeah, I really do believe in G2 with more time.
Yeah, I mean, they have had, I don't know, at least a few weeks now, right?
Yeah.
So I think G2 should.
Let's take a look at the lower bracket then. What the hell have we cooked up down here? Because it is different compared to the last time that we did it. So let's go. I would expect Oxygen to be able to win here. Is that where your brain is as well?
It's tough. Like, I think the problem that I have with Na'Vi currently and like Fireflux is they're very new team. Like, Oxygen are very well tenured. They know how they want to approach stuff. Same with Guild beating Fireflux. It's just Guild should not be losing that in a million years.
Yeah.
And it's not because Fireflux is trash. It's just they're a brand new team that's still trying to work out how they want to play. You can make the same argument for Supermassive Blaze as well, to be honest, but maybe they just get past this stage of a tournament just off firepower and like the heavyweight players that they have alone. I do think Oxygen would beat Na'Vi, but Na'Vi, if they clean up a lot of the mistakes that they make, they're a contender for Berlin. I genuinely think. Like, that is a tight and scary team. It's just too early to say that firepower is on par with G2, who are looking more confident, if that makes sense.
Let's lock in Supermassive Blaze and Guild for these then, the ones that we were talking about. Those would be my expectations too. That sets us up for a Liquid Giants lower bracket round 1, which is the finals of Challengers 2. That was like the two best teams that qualified out of the second round of EU, and one of them's going home immediately.
I gotta still go with Liquid here, right?
Yeah,
Liquid.
They
discovered the duelists and
stop
they're
playing
ready
KO.
to win.
Stop playing KO. Play Scream on Jett, please. Don't play the KO.
I mean, yeah, it's dependent on whether or not they have duelists. But if they have duelists, I will be going with Liquid.
I think they've kind of figured out what David P is up to as well. I think it does take a time to rediscover how Giants play. Especially, I don't think it's just David P though. I think it's the insane aggression of Fatinho and Hoodie as well. The way that they like to play is they're very happy to take early duels, and I think that was catching Liquid off guard a little bit at the beginning of the rounds, and then, you know, you have David P just mopping shit up at the end. And I think now that Liquid have got a read on them, unfortunately, I think Giants' great run might come to an end here.
I mean, that's the thing, is like, I don't think the expectation was them to do better. Getting here is the success, I suppose, of Giants. If they can go further, then sure, like, but I think that you could start to see that they were running on fumes a little bit, and Team Liquid certainly didn't struggle as much against Giants as they did the first time around, where Giants qualified for the open bracket, right? So I do think that Liquid are very good and have a lot of different looks that they can use. And also, to be fair, Team Liquid have impressed and surprised a lot of people by getting this far. And they also looked exceptional in EMEA Stage 2 as well. So I think that Liquid could just sort of pull it out of their ass like they usually do and look the best team out of anybody. You can never really write them off, but you can never really go their favorites. Nobody's going to predict them to win because it's Team Liquid.
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna say Supermassive Blaze make it through the top, even though that's a Turkish domestic game. It could go either way, I think. But Supermassive Blaze, as long as they don't choke, should be the favorites in that game. It's the Guild Liquid game that's really interesting, I think, in the lower bracket.
No, I'm going with Liquid again.
Really?
Yeah.
You're not. See, this is where I disagree. This is where I have faith in the consistency of Guild. I don't.
This is where I have faith in the ability of Liquid to pull it out when it matters.
Just pull it out of their ass. Just random.
But they do. I feel like Liquid do have a knack for making it happen when it actually counts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Guild's the opposite.
And I agree. I think Guild are the opposite. I think they're consistent until it matters. I also think that Guild, while I appreciate the way that they play, I also think that it is fairly. I don't want to say readable, but they have a static approach to the maps and the way they play out their attack halves. It's very formulaic, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it does lead you eventually to a point where, you know, there's only so much that you can formalize. That's a word.
Formulate?
Yeah,
perhaps?
Formulate. Oh, no, I'll just make a new word.
Formalize.
Where I have faith in Liquid in these scenarios. I think that Liquid also... I think they looked rough in this qualifier run because they were one of the many teams in Europe that just seemed to want to reinvent the wheel and be experimental when, you know, Giants were just kind of cruising through doing what works, right? But I think Liquid are back on track now.
Liquid are very good at just being when they bring out something new compositionally, it's just like, that's what I felt with being on the desk for the best of 5 where to beat Fnatic is like, all right, Scream's back on Jett. They've just got this because it feels like they did it against FPX in Stage 2, right? Where they came out with the Yampi on Killjoy, the Viper on Haven. It's just, they're the team to come out with compositions that just boom the enemy. I don't know if Team Liquid would use it against Guild necessarily. I think they're just trying to outplay them. But I think Liquid look best when they come out with something a little bit different, like Yampi back on the Jett. They've a lot of creative freedom and fluidity to be able to do a lot of stuff. So when they play triple initiate it even and go for these really long KO knives to try and suppress people, and there's zero follow-up, that's where they look the worst. So I do expect them to sort of come in and be a bit more fluid, and that's where they look the best. The Guilds, yeah, the opposite, I think.
That same reasoning, though, is the reason that I don't think Liquid are going to do very well in this bracket overall. Because to me, when Liquid were at their best, it was when they had new shit. They had been like in the fucking lab researching some wild comp, and they threw it at you, and suddenly Oxygen are getting 13-0'd, and they don't know how to deal with Yampy upping on Killjoy.
Yeah, and like, wrecked FPX.
Yeah, and they demolished FPX with it as well. But that wasn't them just playing their like most basic scream on Jett, will just support him kind of stuff. I think that is going to be better than a interesting comp that doesn't work, but I think it's got a ceiling to it because it's Liquid. They're not full of the most cracked out players possible, and they're just trying to wing it and see if it happens. I'm waiting to see Liquid's lab results, and so far the lab results have been very underwhelming. They went into the lab, they tried to bring out KO, and it failed, and now I think they're defaulting back to Comfort, and Comfort has a ceiling on it for Liquid.
Yeah, I feel that there is a large difference in the timing when they released the new lab experiments, right? Because the one previously that boomed FPX and then they crushed Oxygen with it, that came out during the final qualifier.
Quite late in
versus this KO experiment that clearly went wrong. They attempted to use in the second open qualifier just to make it through.
Yeah. So a lot earlier in the process.
Yeah, so a bit...
So it's not so much as a pocket pick, more experimentation.
I was wondering if to some extent they just wanted to get some real match practice with that too, where they felt that, okay, we'll beat these teams regardless, even if this doesn't look too good, we'll make it through anyhow. Maybe they felt comfortable in that way enough to use it in so many matches. But I honestly just do have faith in Liquid in these situations. I keep feeling like I end up in this position in some of these brackets with Liquid where it's like, okay, this is where Liquid are going to kind of stumble, they're going to fall, and something's going to have to change. And it just never seems to come. I feel like they just have... they
keep
have
pulling new shit out their ass.
That intangible factor that they just squeeze through time and time again.
The intangible factor is called Scream.
To some extent. But
Link now recently as well.
Oh, Link has been. I mean, Link's just been getting a judge.
I'm convincing myself. I think Liquid are going to beat FPX if this happens. I think they're going all the way through.
Oh, Jesus. What do you think,
It happened last time.
I had FPX winning this one, but I think, again, it could go either way. Like, we could just see an FPX that just comes in and dominates everybody. Like, I spoke to Doombros about it because we all did our predictions for like the analyst desk and stuff that went on Twitter. Nobody predicted FPX. Nobody predicted Team Liquid again. And I feel that these are the two teams that need to sort of win back confidence, certainly in the European side of stuff, because Team Liquid have been doing that. They've constantly been like, nobody believes in us, yet we still put in performances and look well.
Yeah.
But FPX, it's the opposite right now. They got through first time at least, but it wasn't as confident. But I feel good about this FPX. That's such a copium thing to say. It's like, this is the time. Trust the process. This is where our lives change for the better.
I mean, I've been waiting years for FPX to actually win something that mattered. But
this is the qualifier game to go to Berlin, right?
I just have no faith.
Yes. This lower round 3 qualifies
to go makes it to Berlin,
which is precisely when they're going to beef it again.
I feel like I don't have that much faith in either of these two teams, FPX or Liquid. I feel like,
but I never have faith in Liquid, and then they always do it somehow. And I always have faith in FPX, and they never do it. So I don't know.
I do think
it's a banger. Whatever. What would it come down? If we're looking at like maps as well, what would it come down to? Because
Lord knows. I really feel like they could go for anything here. Liquid only ban Icebox, basically, right? Like that's been their permaban, and outside of that, the map pool could go in any fucking direction. I don't think it's easy to read into. Also, because teams like to prep things for these kind of matches. This is one where like Liquid could have something just hidden up their sleeve that they pull out for this game, or FPX might, and then it just changes the tide of everything. I would predict FPX, but if everyone's on, what did you say, Ryan? Did you say FPX as well?
I I need to believe. Yeah.
I'm right there with you with the copium, mate. I'm right there with you.
Our allotted FPX time is over. We got to move on.
I think
they're only allowed 2 minutes.
It's one of these things that, like, if FPX get to this point and they win this game, they could just go and breeze the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like, they just suddenly turn it on where it matters, and then they look the best, and then they get to Berlin and bottom out or something.
Sure, could happen.
It's just it's always interesting to be a fan of FPX. But
I have faith in Gambit to be able to beat Supermassive Blaze.
I do too. Yeah.
I think they're going to Berlin. I think Gambit have the consistency in terms of their domestic results, and they performed well enough at EMEA that you should be confident that they can make top 4 in a tournament like this. I think that, you know, they lose to Ascend. They're probably going to beat the majority of other people in front of them, including Supermassive Blaze here. They're pretty well-rounded. I know their results, like, in some of these smaller tournaments have been a bit wonky recently. They lost to Team Finest, for example, but I really believe they were playing kind of troll comps there. They were playing, like, Nats on KO, and they just swapped up some of their other... They weren't playing any comp that they'd played before in a big game, so I think they were just kind of messing around in that DreamHack tournament. So I'm going with them here. I know that they could absolutely let me down as well, but there aren't that many teams that I have that much confidence in Europe. It's only Ascend and G2 that I'm feeling dead set on. Outside of that, Gambit and FPX are like, they're playing with my heart.
It's just the dream, isn't it, to sort of see them actually be at a proper LAN.
Oh yeah, I'd love to see Gambit
tournament. And yeah, I think this is just where Gambit goes on the run. Because I'm also thinking, like, all right, you've qualified. Which team just kind of, like, the tension just releases from their shoulders and they just start going mental against people and looking really good because they qualified. The rest is effectively, well, it's not really seeding, but it probably will have a big impact on where people get placed in a bracket. But also, it's a good amount of money as well. So I do think that, like, Gambit from here, the pressure isn't on them. They just come in and slap everybody else, including Ascend.
I mean, I could see Gambit doing that. I could see FPX doing that. Any of those teams that, like, has historically underperformed a little bit when it comes to big time matches, I could completely see just making a run. I really don't mind how the rest of the bracket plays out though, because the most important thing is just qualifying for Berlin in the first place.
Yeah.
Okay, the other thing
really,
sorry, Ryan, go on.
No, it's fine. It's just a crazy bracket. Like, for those, just to plug it, is like, for those that don't know much about Europe that want to watch it, I think NA finishes this week, right? Whereas EMEA is for 2 weeks. It finishes next Sunday. So you don't need to be like, oh, it clashes with NA. This is worth a watch because this is some ridiculous games that are happening.
It's really nice that they've scheduled it out that way.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether that was intentional, but, like, Korea happened this week before any of the other games as well. We want to talk about Korea in a moment, but the first thing that we want to touch on here is EU power rankings as well. I don't want to spend forever on this because we're already like an hour and a half through, an hour and 10 minutes through the show. Yeah, and they're going to change as well. But I do want to get some kind of sense of historic value, especially for people that haven't watched too much Europe. And so they're coming in, and I want to kind of give them some idea of a performance over a larger period of time. So it's not just this team is the best right now. I don't know when the fuck these rankings are from. These are from, like, Ignition Series or some shit. I don't even know, because last time we had Heretics at the top. So I don't know what the fuck this was.
This was the one that I was on last time, I'm pretty sure. No, it won't have been, because Ascend weren't a thing. Because I remember talking about...
We've added some new teams to it. Yeah. Yeah, God knows.
We just added Ascend, so I think this was First Strike. But anyhow, I mean, I think the easiest thing to do is just start just from Champions Tour until now.
Yeah,
and then
heavily weighting more recent results rather than older results.
And
same as we did for the North American one,
right? And for the listeners, we'll then use this list and update it as time goes on and there's more tournaments. But this one, we're going to weigh history more because we just need to set the teams somewhere, right?
Sure.
And then as time goes on, we will update it.
Yeah.
Just so people are aware of how it's going to work.
Of course, these are not going to be exactly one-to-one with our predictions in the tournament because predictions are more based on their form and what they've looked like currently.
It's not results-oriented.
Yeah, whereas a team like G2, for example, G2 hasn't existed. Like, this roster is new, so you can't rate them insanely highly, even though we're predicting them to, like, come second or whatever in the tournament overall. I want to start us off by saying probably the #1 team, although this could be debatable, I would say is Ascend. They're the favorites in this stage of the cycle. They won Masters 1. And yes, they didn't qualify even to EMEA finals when it came to Masters 2 and towards Reykjavik. But they were still considered a strong team at that time in terms of, you know, their performance in the server. And I think on the balance of things, it's either between them or like weighting Fnatic's run at Reykjavik incredibly highly, even though they did nothing at Masters 1, and they're also eliminated in Masters 3. So I feel like it's almost a lock for Ascend in that #1 position.
Yeah, I agree for the same reason.
I'd agree, yeah.
Okay. That's an easy one.
My second take, though, is a little spicier because, again, I feel like Fnatic probably end up getting beaten out here by a team that has consistency. But here's the problem. With EMEA, you know, we're saying this is a European power ranking, but really it's EMEA. It includes CIS and Turkey. Those teams that dominate their region only get small opportunities to play against the best in the region.
Yes.
So a team like Gambit, for example, they win Masters 1 in their region. They win the Challengers Final for CIS. They win the Challengers Final for Reykjavik as well and place top 4 at EMEA Finals. And they win the Challengers Final for CIS this stage as well.
Yeah.
So they've like won everything that they're possible. They've won every game in front of them, basically. And when they had an opportunity to play against the top European teams, they still made top 4.
Yeah.
That to me probably gives them second place.
They beat what's they beat in that bracket?
Did they beat Guild? Or did they not play against Guild?
Teams, if I remember correctly.
It was Oxygen to beat Guild.
Yeah,
right.
It was one of the Turkish teams.
Gambit probably beat BBL or something.
I can't remember exactly. And then they lost to Fnatic. No.
Yes, I think they lost to Fnatic. Right. Yes, they did. They played on Icebox. It was like this incredible game.
Yeah, I think it feels so. Doesn't feel right putting Fnatic #2 right now, but
I don't think you can put Fnatic at #2 because they didn't do anything in Masters in stage 1 or stage 3. Like they literally didn't qualify for either of those finals. They didn't make top 8. They're like not even on the radar, you know. They just had an incredible run.
They just blitzed everyone in Masters too.
And it's not like they're a nobody team. They're still a good team, but they're just on the outside of top 8 in 2 out of 3 of the stages.
Yeah. Is winning in CIS more important than Fnatic having won a full EMEA bracket?
I mean, they didn't win the EMEA bracket. They finished second, actually. It was Liquid that won.
Oh, yeah, but okay.
But I agree with you. Fnatic were the better team.
Yeah, they were the better
run.
team, and they made second at Iceland.
And it's the second place at Iceland that is weighed so heavily. And they did beat some good teams there, for sure. They beat Liquid again. They beat NUTURN. They beat version 1 as well, right? So it's not like Fnatic made second by beating a bunch of trash teams. This is an extremely good run through Reykjavik. But does that get them second place over Gambit, who have been so consistent and won everything in their smaller region? I don't know.
I think there's like a good gauge of it, like a good sort of question you can ask yourself to think about it. It's quite likely that Fnatic and Gambit and some of the other teams will be in a last chance qualifier. Who do you think would be favourites just at this point, based off previous performances, to be the one team to come out of EMEA? Because I'd still say it'd be Fnatic.
I don't know. I really don't know. I like this Fnatic roster. I think they're a great team. I think they're eventually going to be able to get it together. Their game against Gambit at the EMEA finals could have gone either way anyway. You know, there's a real chance there that game, I think it was a 2-0, but I think Icebox was like OT or something, wasn't it?
13-11, I think.
Right. So I guess me saying that it could have gone either way is a little extreme, but that one map certainly could have gone either way.
I think beating Gambit on Icebox is a respectable result, too.
Absolutely, it is.
They're crazy on Icebox. They're a gorgeous team to watch on that map. But
here's the other question as well. Liquid actually won that stage. They beat Fnatic in the BO5, and they finish fourth. Sorry.
I mean, I think Reykjavik. It's just that they're Reykjavik. Despite finishing fourth, though, it didn't feel comfortable.
I agree. It was flat.
It was very Yeah.
But there is an argument for rating Liquid ahead of Fnatic because they are actually in the qualifier for stage 3. Yeah. They've outperformed Fnatic this time. They literally beat them recently. And they beat them in Europe. They qualified ahead of them in the EMEA finals. They just didn't do as well as they should have done when it came to Reykjavik. Yeah. So there is also an argument that you should be placing Liquid ahead of Fnatic when it comes to these rankings because
not absurd.
You know, it's really, I think it's really subjective where you place 2, 3, and 4 between Fnatic, Liquid, and Gambit.
Also, to be fair as well, we to some extent we are just placing things now right to work off of for the future. And after this bracket plays out, this will certainly, I think, change significantly.
A lot of the questions.
Yeah, specifically, like, if Gambit have a really good run, they just have to be over Fnatic, right?
Yeah.
If Liquid have a really good run, they have to be over Fnatic, right?
It almost feels... Like that. The reason I would put Fnatic, and this sounds like a hot take, at 4th behind both of them, because it is almost impossible for Fnatic to improve their position in the short term. Yeah. Whereas Gambit and Liquid... Even if they bombed out, of this tournament that they're about to go in, well then obviously there's a big discussion about maybe Fnatic should be above them. But that's not likely. The likelihood is that they're going to perform, they're going to do reasonably well, and there's going to be a serious argument that they should be above Fnatic. So I think unless they both tank, they're going to be above Fnatic anyway, so I might just slot them in there anyway. That's obviously kind of bullshit logic because it's supposed to be based on what's happened rather than a prediction. But that would be my approach.
Wing it. What do you think, Ryan? Setting the stage here.
Ryan, you're the EU expert. It doesn't matter that much because we're going to tweak things in a couple of weeks anyway. But what's your input? And we'll go with you, I think, as our expert here.
I was going to sort of bring other contenders into the fold when it comes to that consistency.
Jesus Christ!
Like I think this top 5 is like accurate, and it could be in any given order, especially depending on how some of these teams do. I think realistically, Team Liquid is over Fnatic, but they're next to each other. I would move Gambit up to 2nd and move Team Liquid to 3rd because I don't know what it is. I think people just naturally are opposed to Team Liquid or admitting that Team Liquid is a solid team. And again, it's just about what kind of confidence do you have of them going onto an international stage and just running riot, because that's how it sort of feels, is which teams do I look at and go, I'd really like them to be at Berlin because I think that they're a solid representation on how good the region could be. I don't think that was Fnatic or Liquid for stage 2. And I also think that, like, Ascend, another side of it is just we had single elimination tournaments for stage 1 and stage 2. Yeah. Like, this is the most consistent, solid tournament that we've had. So I think you have even more of a recency bias when it comes to that. Okay. So I think that Gambit being able to be consistent for a region is, sure, a little bit weaker. The potential and promise is there. It's still a young squad. And Team Liquid just have got points of being a little bit more consistent at the very least from Fnatic. But it's very easy for G2 to take over them. So I think that top 5 is accurate. But I absolutely think that people need to stop sleeping on Guild. Because when it comes to consistency, they have been that. They've been stage 1, 2, and 3. They're in 6th place, I think.
Yeah. Okay, well, I would like to nominate...
Okay.
So, first of all, anytime you look at Guild's history, they are just on almost exactly the same level as FPX, except a little ahead of them. Yeah. And they have been a little ahead of them, as wild as it is.
It is fucking nuts.
How crazy is that? Yeah. I mean, I would absolutely say FPX have the higher ceiling of them. But in terms of their actual results, Guild have been neck and neck with FPX and actually outpaced them a little bit. So anywhere we put Guild, I think we have to put Fun Plus Phoenix right behind them. Yeah. So if we're going to slot Guild in, I'd like to say FPX would be right behind them. I also want to nominate Oxygen, though, as well. Top 4 finish at EMEA Finals for Stage 2, and they've done well in the Turkish scene. It's a little similar to the... In fact, it's quite similar to the Gambit discussion, except a bit weaker, because they finished 2nd this time around behind Supermassive Blaze, and they finished 2nd behind like Footballist when they qualified the second time
and then
around.
Outperformed them on the international stage.
So I think Oxygen, you could make an argument anywhere from 5th to 8th, I think. Yeah, it just depended on how much you actually weigh doing well in a smaller scene.
I do have to ask, we're solid with G2 and 5th right now? Because I'm trying to...
I don't think so.
What have... And I'm assuming we're looking at G2, Kellogg's Nookie G2.
Yeah. I don't think you can give G2 credit for former like Heretics results.
Yeah.
So I think they have to be ranked lower until they continue to put up.
They're the team with the most potential to rocket up the list.
I think they've got like a big up arrow right next to them, you know, of like these guys are heading upwards. It's just they haven't got enough results yet to be in that position.
I think you take them off the list, not because they're not a top 10 team. It's just it is way too early to get a full gauge on the potential because everything that's been put in front of them, barring Ascend, which is definitively the best team in Europe, they have looked good over. And I think for G2 as well, they have to like win Berlin or place extremely high in Berlin to even get like last chance qualifiers at this point. Like doing 5th place isn't good enough. They don't make last chance qualifiers. So I think that this G2 is out for blood. But they could be the #1 team. It's so hard to gauge.
Sure. But when you're doing a power ranking over a long period of time, even if someone gets a #1 result in a tournament, that only gets them up, you know, a couple of stages, and then they have to perform consistently to get all the way up. To me, I would just swap Oxygen and G2 around, I think. Where you've got, like, if you're giving Oxygen credit for performing in a smaller region, all right, they probably get into a high spot, even though they haven't been able to perform repeatedly. And we'll see where they go in this tournament. You know, if they bomb out, then of course they slip. If they do well and they make top 4 again, then obviously that's crazy. They move up the rankings.
Yeah.
And to me, G2 have done enough this stage to be ahead of most of the other teams that we've got down there too.
I agree with that. I just want to see. This is just a ranking based on the path of this year so far, and they don't have numbers on the board yet, so we just need to see a bit more from them. So I think that's pretty fair. I still would put their success in this qualifier so far ahead of the non-success of teams that have existed for a longer time,
like
that have been hovering outside of the top 8.
Because I think their rivals are like BDS probably, who finished 6th. I think it was like 6th in stage 1, and then maybe like 5th, 6th, or 5th to 8th again in like stage 2 or something. You know, they're a top 8 team, but they've never really done anything. That's where I would give G2 credit as like, okay, I would rank them above a team that's been consistently 8th place. If you are a brand new roster that just immediately came out and qualified in 2nd place, I'm gonna, you know, I think that's where you start to climb onto the board a little. What do you think about that?
I think Guild should go over Oxygen. I think they both did the same thing. Both these teams have scored points across all 3 stages. There's not many teams that have done that. But I think Guild, it's more impressive just because of the caliber of teams that they have to play up against. And also, a lot of the time, it's been single elimination, not allowed to slip up.
Okay.
They did lose to Oxygen in stage 2, but it was definitely like a vast underperformance of what we expected from Guild. Not necessarily Oxygen showing up. They've just been super consistent, which is definitely recommendable, and why I would put Oxygen as probably the only Turkish team in this top 10. Like Supermassive plays similar to G2. It's like, we'll wait and see. But I've been impressed how consistently strong Guild have looked, but it's never really enough to get top 4 in qualifiers to get to Berlin, right? So 5th adds up, right? Because I see these teams being better than them and then beating them. But Guild, if they're on 1, they could be top 3. But how realistic is that? How often are they able to do that?
All right.
I think that is very fair.
I think that's pretty reasonable. Yeah. The other teams that I would have to fill out the top 10 are probably BDS, and then I don't really know. I mean, you've got Supermassive Blaze or NIP have been somewhat consistent over a long period of time, but they haven't done anything recently.
Yeah, maybe
Vitality have been consistent over a large period of time. So have Alliance, but
I like Vitality, but I feel like
they just never really go anywhere.
It irks me because you can see them on the path, and then they fucking stumble off into the woods every time. They just can never follow it to completion.
Who do you think
irritates me?
Who would you nominate, Ryan, for the 10th position then? If we had BDS up there, who I think are kind of a lock because they've just been consistent, like 8th kind of place for so long. Who do you have at 10th?
I feel like BDS would be the 10th team, but I can't think of anybody that's just been better than them throughout the year. Like Forza have been okay, but they're coming in limping, I feel, to EMEA. Like, they're a good squad. They play some really good Valorant, but I often find that it's one of those teams that it almost feels like they're rumored to be breaking up and dropping players, but they've just managed to scrape by this time.
Right.
Supermassive Blaze could easily be in there, but they could also just lose both of their games instantly. It's watching the VODs back from Turkey has been so difficult to really gauge how they'd play, because it's like they might as well be playing Overwatch at that point, because it feels like it's such a different way of them playing a game that them coming into playing a slower pace against the MEA teams. They could just dominate. They could learn. Obviously, with the players that they have in like Tani at the helm, they're well versed in how it should be played. I don't know. I feel like any of these teams are in for a shout, really. It's just, you could just go through each one of them, and maybe, I can't even say Fubalist, because the teams that started off the year really well have dipped off now, and then there's teams like 10-Star that have come into fruition more frequently, that were no-namers back in February. So I don't even think you put a 10th team, because nobody's really standing up. I guess it would be Supermassive Blaze, but
that's also perfectly fine. We don't have to be stuck in our ways of making a top 10. This is just the power rankings. We can leave it as a top 9. We did that for... Did we do that for NA recently or something? I swear we did that recently.
We did do that for something at some point.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that. It'll be easier to and then we'll revisit this in a few weeks once the dust is settled with this EU qualifier.
And absolutely, this will change. This is
to be clear, it's like with the NA one we have and this one, they were very weighted on the past, because we were just forming these now for 2021. And then we'll just update these lists as tournaments happen and time goes on. So that's just kind of the system.
So don't worry. Obviously, G2 are weighted far too low for their current performance. It's just because they haven't had enough results yet. So they will, if they perform as expected, move up the rankings.
Beef out, they probably won't.
I mean, if they beef out, then they might drop out completely. So, all right. Let's move on to talking about Korea a little bit. I'm excited to discuss this, because I've got a real,
You're itching?
I am.
Itching to talk about Korea.
I'm itching to talk about Korea, because before Reykjavik, I wasn't that excited about the region. NUTURN were just blasting through everything. They won every map, and I was like, okay, these guys look all right. Then they turned up at Reykjavik, and they actually overperformed my expectations. I think they overperformed their own ability in the game against version 1, where they, outpowered them almost, outperformed them in a mechanical sense, where they just busted into executes and overwhelmed them with allowance suggest, just popping heads all over the place, clutches all over. So I think that was a fantastic performance that really put Korean Valorant on the map. NUTURN are not going to Berlin. Their hopes have been ended. They lost Lakia. Lakia moved over to Vision Strikers. We covered that on the show. They're playing with 10X. They lost to Damwon, a team that didn't even qualify. What do you think about that? Does that indicate that NUTURN are struggling? The Korean scene as a whole is getting a lot better? A mixture of both? What's your thoughts on that aspect of it, that we won't end up seeing NUTURN with Solo, Perry, etc. at the event?
I think there's a little bit of both. I think that the Korean scene is the best it's ever been right now. I actually think by quite a large margin. I mean, I think Vision Strikers are the best team that's been in Korea so far, this iteration right now. And the next sort of 3 teams around them, which, I mean, these matches were incredibly close. This Damwon NUTURN game came down to the wire, and then Damwon FAQ came also down to the wire. Still, by the way,
NUTURN were up 9-5 on, I think, all 3 of the maps, and then ended up losing.
I mean, the last map was a tragedy.
Yeah.
I do think that NUTURN... I still think that I think they played pretty well, but there were just a lot of moments where, especially I think on Breeze on the last map, where it just started to devolve. They were getting ahead of themselves. Players were going for too many little individual peaks. Like, they lost a couple tragic rounds where they were pushing down mid on defense into an eco and just all died. I mean, they were in like a 4v2 post plant, and they just started taking 1v1s.
Yeah, that was
also
dreadful.
Actually, Kurt, God, I think
you made a note.
I did actually. Yeah, it's round 15 on Breeze, Kurt, because I think it
is this a 4v2 that they lost?
Because no, but I actually think it illustrates an important point about that game, which was that I think NUTURN still had. In that round, they do a really cool execute onto the site to open it up on Breeze on A, and then it collapses in the post plant where players start over peaking, and it was moments like that, these little moments of sloppiness that Damwon were able to exploit and win that map in narrow fashion and really win the series in narrow fashion. I still think NUTURN had a lot of good ideas. They're still a really good team, but listen, I mean, they lost a critical piece in Lakia. Yes. I do think 10X is a good replacement, but I really think he's got like a duelist tendency to him. Like that one time where when he does actually play duelist like on Icebox, I think his entering is this execute is just excellent, by the way. Splitting in from from mid through A main.
Viper smoke, all the way to the back.
Viper smoke in the back. They had perfect flashes for everything. Solo was lurking up through halls. I mean, by the way, Solo's lurks in this game were just getting hard red too.
They were. I mean,
and now but it's now they're just over peaking. It's falling apart, and that's what caused the fumble to me. But again, I still think NUTURN were good. I don't think they're as good as they were at Iceland. No, I still think they're a good team though, and I think that then it serves a bit more of a testament as to, okay, there's just actually there are teams rising to the top now in Korea. Like I think Damwon and F4Q are both solid teams, and then Vision Strikers are just crazy.
But the giant killers as well. Like I think that's the difficult position that NUTURN found themselves in, where they were the original giant killers taking down Vision Strikers, and now teams that are exceptionally good at like F4Q, for example, now they're killing the giants that are NUTURN. Like it sort of roles reversed, and now they have pressure on them. I think it's that, okay, we're the top dog in Korea now, not Vision Strikers. And also, I think they had a brutal bracket, like single elimination, trying to make their way through.
Yeah,
I think Vision Strikers would have struggled if it was like switched over from either side of the bracket. So
you think? Because I don't agree with that. I actually think TNL are the second best team in Korea right now. I think watching watching the Vision Strikers TNL game, I think TNL are the second best team in Korea, and I think Vision Strikers are on another fucking level. The first half of these games, of these maps, were dead even. TNL were doing so many amazing things, and it wasn't like TNL are only good at defense. They start defense here. Their bind defense was excellent. They had a bunch of great ideas to keep Vision Strikers down. Then on Ascent, they had a bunch of great ideas on their attacking rounds as well. They look really good, and then they just can't hold on against Vision Strikers in the second half, and they just crumble. They lost confidence at challenging them. They got overwhelmed in terms of their aim and stuff, but I think that TNL squad is really fucking good. I don't think the other side of the bracket is weak. I think Vision Strikers are just that sick. Well, I originally thought the same thing of like, oh, well, Vision Strikers probably just got it kind of easy on that side. And then when I'm watching the game, I'm like, TNL have got some really good ideas of what they're doing here. They beat Damwon earlier on in the tournament as well, I think, in like the group stage. Like, they're not a pushover squad, I don't think. That wasn't the impression that I got at all. But
that's fair. Do you think it was like double elimination? Would we see TNL going through as well as Vision Strikers?
I think that's hard to call because I don't think TNL are like easily the second best team in Korea. I don't want to make that kind of claim. I'm just saying that they are. I think TNL are at least as good as an F4Q or a Damwon.
Yeah, so you think that if they played Damwon or F4Q or NUTURN for that matter, they could beat them?
They could.
Okay.
I'm not.
They have a good chance of beating them?
They have a good chance of beating them. Yeah, I might even consider them the favorites if I had been able to watch more games.
But at least like close. But at least
it's
60-40, 40-60, 50-50.
At least a coin flip in my head.
Sure.
That's how I'm thinking about things.
Okay.
So I don't think. Yeah, I don't think there's anything to really be that mad about in terms of TNL's performance. But for NUTURN,
there's a moment in this round I actually coomed. There was just a small moment where. Before they I believe it's this round because Stax has the op, where before they went into a B site hit earlier in the round, Buzz is opping and he switches with Stax and gets the rifle so he can dash in an entry on the site. Yeah. I was losing. It was a small thing, but I'm like, it's a small thing, but I've never seen anyone do that, and it's just those little things like that that. I feel like we're moving on from NUTURN's Berlin hopes ended into the Vision Strikers
let's talk about Vision Strikers.
Hour.
Sure,
but
let's talk about
I was blown away in that game.
I think what you just said then sort of sums it up, though, is just naturally we find ourselves talking about the other teams because they were just more interesting. I think that's why F4Q beat down one as well. It's just there was a bit more flair with how they play. And I think that was just the NUTURN side of it.
Flair is the right word.
Really flat.
Yeah, I mean, flair is the right word. When it comes to Vision Strikers and F4Q, the Vision Strikers have insane firepower, a huge amount of aggression, and they're overwhelming in terms of the pace they play at. But F4Q also have a fuck ton of flair. Yeah. Bunny might be the most entertaining player that we see at Berlin. Seriously, this guy's crazy. He's double blast packing around all over the place. He's got Judge in hands. He's like still blast pack entry and when he's rifling as well, and he'll happily take an aim duel as he comes to the end after a blast pack peak. And he's still got the quality of mechanics to be able to outperform people in entry, even though he's like flying through the air and stuff as well. So I don't think that the Korean scene or any outside fans of NUTURN should be sad about Vision Strikers and F4Q representing the region when it comes to
if you're sad about Vision Strikers representing the region, you're tripping.
Yeah, because NUTURN were not the best team. They didn't get unlucky. You have easily the best team representing you, and then another decent
this
team.
Vision Strikers is the best team that there's been in Korea, without a doubt.
I would agree with that.
I don't even think it's close. But yeah, I think that not only is like you're touching on the firepower, the individual skill on the players that they have on that team, it's just out of control. That aside, it's just the pace at which they use their utility is so overwhelming.
Yeah.
But all the timings are so perfect. It's just so well thought out. Like even looking at the comp that Vision Strikers ran on Bind with the sky and the breach, and on paper, it's like it looks a bit odd.
Yeah. Sorry, I just want to interrupt you for a moment while we're watching F4Q here as well, because I just want to point out that this round ends up with some fucking crazy clutch. Look how well Damwon execute this final round. They wait for the flash to come back up on the sky. They're holding, waiting for the retake. Flash is back. Flash, dash into a smoke. Texture gets 2. And then it's just fucking Bunny running in, trying to save his team in the final round. He's like running and spraying, just wide swings Texture and then gets the final kill. Like F4Q is full of crazy shit like that. Yeah. I think Zunba might be the best Astra in Korea.
Agreed.
And
that was going to be my point, yeah.
I think Zunba might be one of the best Astras in the world as well. Maybe even the best in terms of how he uses his utility. The smokes that he places down. The Korean scene has really gone hard in the fucking paint when it comes to Astra.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of very cool smoke positions. Like Zunba has a smoke position on Haven C where he'll smoke. Like where Dapper would cage in between the box and the platform, but then he has another smoke on the edge of the platform so he can sneak up on top of the platform, get down on the ground inside his smoke, and swing out onto people in a very unexpected manner. Like he has a ton of crazy setups like that make F4Q a really fun team to watch. I think they could make a quarter final at Berlin, but it would be an overperformance with like an upset result. But Vision Strikers are really where the hope of Korea is, I think, for like a deep run.
Do you think F4Q now are better than NUTURN at Iceland?
I think it's different. I think NUTURN were quite a well-rounded team with a lot of cool like trap plays and that kind of stuff and extremely good power across their roster.
Yeah.
F4Q are kind of cheesy. It feels rude to say that because people associate cheese with like bad teams getting unfair wins or something, you know? But the style they play is quite unusual. And I think it's going to catch teams off. But I don't think they're going to look consistently better than NUTURN did at Reykjavik. No. I don't think that, for example, 5K, he's the IGL and the second duelist on this team. He's essentially a Reyna one-trick, but he does play Jett on Haven. I don't think he is good enough to support Bunny particularly if a team has the firepower to shut down Bunny. But Bunny is also a fucking maniac. Like, he's just blast packing into you all over the place and trying to judge you in the face. That's going to tilt teams and take them off their game.
Yeah.
And Zumba's excellent and Astra. So I think they have a lot of good things going for them, but I don't think they're as well-rounded as NUTURN were when they got to Reykjavik. Their strengths lie in very different areas, but they're so fun to watch.
It's also nice to see Vision Strikers actually make use of a 6-player roster that isn't... Like, I hated what BDS did. It tilted me to no end to watch a player like Hoppy play Cypher, then Omen, then Phoenix, then not play a map across their map pool. It's just the fact that they're able to interject players in and out and take somebody like Lakia out of the server, and Vision Strikers still looking that good because we're taking this player out because he's an expert at being a Sova or a Sentinel. So we're going to use that and put it in, take it out, depending on what map they're playing. That works so much better. It's almost like Overwatch-esque when it comes to we're putting in a Sentinel player on this map where Sentinels are good, but we'll take them out on a map like Bind where we don't need a Sentinel player. It's
Lakia is
nice
currently...
They're molding it more that people should consider six-man rosters in a way that you couldn't have before, because so many people it was a six-man roster because they were going to kick somebody later on, so it was almost a meme, or BDS that just almost take the piss with it, where it's just everybody's changing, you get no consistency, and it looks a bit of a mess. Like Vision Strikers, it looks part of the plan, and that's why it looks so good.
I think Korean esports culture as well is much more open to that kind of thing, of having people rotate in based on their strengths, rather than the like almost egocentric individualism of North American or some European CS backgrounds.
Very team focused, yeah.
Yeah, in Overwatch, in League of Legends, even wasn't there there's something about this when it came to like even 1v1 esports with like StarCraft. I didn't follow StarCraft, but I believe they had like organizations that you would like field a different player in certain matches or something as orgs played against each other. I don't know, weird scenario, but I think a lot of I would trust Korean teams generally to be able to make 6-man or even 7-man rosters work much more effectively than most North American organizations and teams, just because of the way that they grow up thinking about esports, or like, you know, the kind of esports that they watch and the team systems that they operate in or have watched in the past. Lakia is currently, Lakia was a monster player at Reykjavik. One NUTURN, many different rounds, certain maps, like the game against version 1 with that crazy clutch on Ascent. He's only playing on Bind currently for Vision Strikers. Like, they have a player of that caliber that they've taken from NUTURN, and he's on the bench for 5 out of 6 of their maps. Yeah. That might change in the future, but that's the quality of this roster.
I mean, also they have,
and they're putting RB on Sova,
and it's just it is wild.
That's crazy.
I'm interested to see how it plays out, and if things will continue to change in regards to who will be playing, what roles on what maps. That certainly seems to be the case. God, when they have RB and Buzz on duelists.
It's
just when you have RB and Buzz on duelists, and they have the breach in the sky, and it's Stacks and Lakia, and they're just they have the early round flashes to take fast control up, like B-Long, Hookah, whatever, Shower, and then they go into the full site exec. They still have more than enough utils set up. RB and Buzz just going in deep with the dash and the satchels. It's just, God, it's good, man. Their timings are amazing. Their approach to the maps are amazing. Their executes are perfect. They have the individual skill. And then the guys they have to close the rounds if their entries go down are Stacks and Lakia. And then you have Mako just chilling on the lurk. This seems nasty.
I don't know who the weakest mechanical player is on Vision Strikers. I don't know who they are. And whoever they are, they're better than some teams' best players.
It is an outrageous roster.
They really have created a super team. I think NUTURN, it would have been wrong to call them a super team. This team, absolutely correct in my view.
Yeah. Expectations for Berlin should be very high, I think.
That's the thing. It's like this Vision Strikers looks like it can get better. Like, you look at Ascend or maybe Sentinels, it's kind of like, all right, they're at this level. Not that those teams aren't improving. It's just more, who can actually take a swing at them to topple them, and what happens after that? What happens when their reigns are over? How do they respond if they lose and get knocked down to a lower bracket? I think Vision Strikers, it's only going to get better and stronger from here. So if they didn't look scary now, in some eyes, they are going to look exceptionally tight for the time Berlin. It almost, like, looking at the players and everything you mentioned, it's like peak Barcelona, like when Xavi and Iniesta are on the team. It's like every player is like a world-class star, and you literally have a bench full of crazy strikers and midfielders just because you have that level. And I think it wouldn't surprise me to see Vision Strikers add more players to sort of build this out, because they genuinely might be onto something, coming from somebody that vocally disliked what six-man rosters were trying to do when they were trying to make it work, and it wasn't just we're having 6 players because we're going to drop one in a while, but we're not sure who yet. So, like, this Vision Strikers has the biggest potential in Berlin out of any team, and we don't even know who the other 14 teams are at this point. There's just no way. Yeah.
But what do you think is a reasonable expectation? So they haven't dropped a map so far in Korea, but I think it's also fair to say that the competition in Korea is way shallower than you will get when you actually get to Berlin. There's a massive difference there. What do you think a reasonable expectation is? They have 4 EU teams to compete with, 3 NA teams, plus 2 Brazilian teams, and then a bunch of teams from everywhere else.
Here's the thing.
What's normal? What's reasonable?
I think they should absolutely be a top 4 team. I think they should be in that kind of space.
Okay.
In fact, they could, by placement, have a worse finish than NUTURN at Iceland, but I think it would be potentially more impressive, or at least they would still be a better team than NUTURN were at Iceland. It's just that the level of competition is even elevated. Like, they could finish in 4th, but that'd be way more impressive than NUTURN finishing in 3rd in the fashion they did.
Yeah.
If the rest of the top 3 is whatever, like, just take it from other regions, like Ascend Sentinels and fucking G2 or something.
Yeah, or
like
New Envy, or whatever the hell it was.
Or New Envy, sure. Whoever it is. Point being, they could still be even more impressive of a finish of them getting in 4th than NUTURN getting in 3rd, just because of the quality of the other teams and the quality of their play as well compared to it.
I totally agree.
But I think with the way they're playing too, again, it's very different. It's elements of it are even just elevated notes of what NUTURN showed off at Iceland, I think, in regards to some of the fast executes and the way they hit sites.
It's a lot of fast executes.
But it's even better.
Yes, it is.
I mean,
the utility usage is phenomenal. The spacing and fragging is all just wild.
They have a unique approach in that regard. So I honestly think that I think they could finish anywhere in the top 4.
Okay.
But top 4 is kind of where I'm at.
All right.
Right now.
I think the realistic goal is just top 8, because if they get top 8, they take NUTURN's spot for like instant qualification for champions.
Right.
So I think that in itself is just the goal for Vision Strikers, and it's easily attainable. Maybe we start to see them kind of, again, much like I said before, you get teams that get to a threshold where they pass it, they're in champions, or they qualified for Berlin, or whatever. That is where we're just going to see Vision Strikers playing without any fear. And that's the thing that makes F4Q so scary, is they're going into this with no fear. And that was what made NUTURN so good in Stage 2. And why they underperformed in Stage 3 is there's expectations now. They were the team to beat Vision Strikers to break that streak. Well, no, it wasn't. It was the second time, but it knocked Vision Strikers out. But it's like now NUTURN has to deal with that same pressure, and they weren't able to do it. F4Q, they won't care. They're just like, they're going in hard. There's no other like expectations on them afterwards, maybe qualifying through last chance qualifiers, but this is just a team that isn't afraid to go and give their all and to sort of push the issue. And Vision Strikers are just continuing to improve, and all they need to do is get top 8, and they're a shoo-in for champions, which I think at this point they deserve more than NUTURN, frankly.
Yeah.
The era of Korean dominance is upon us.
I really feel like they should be aiming for semifinals. I think that aiming for grand finals is setting the expectations a little unrealistically, to the point where if they only made semis and people were disappointed, I'd be like, well, what the fuck are you talking about? That was still an incredible run. So to me, realistic and good expectations would be semis, somewhere, 4th, 3rd, that kind of level. But this roster is nuts. My only caveat to my Vision Strikers appreciation is that so much of what they're doing was fast-paced. Yeah. Even when they played rounds where they planted in like the last 30, 20 seconds, it was because they had tried to do an exec on one side of the map and they had pulled out a little bit, and then they had gone for a split or a burst into another side of the map. They didn't do too many rounds where they were slowly probing and trying to force out mistakes from their opponents. They did do rounds where they were like using utility to gather info. They ran a couple of rounds on Ascent where they used their dog in B main. They realized there was an AWPer there, so they burst through Catwalk. And that is not it's not like that was a pre-planned fast round in their mind. They were, okay, let's default, let's find some info, and then we'll exec. But a lot of their endings are very, like, they need 4 people alive and a huge amount of util, and they're going through one area.
Yeah.
And so I do have a question about what happens when they come up against a great team that can hold them back from doing those fast rounds. If those fast execs get crushed a little bit, and they're like, okay, we need to tone it down, we need to calm down a little bit, what is their plan B? What's the secondary, slower option they have? They haven't been forced to use that at all in Korea. There's like 2 rounds that they've ran this entire time that are slow-paced. So it's not that they definitely can't play that. It's that they haven't been even forced or asked to play that kind of style.
Yeah.
Sure. And I'm sure their playbook is going to look very different by the time they get to Berlin, because they have a ton of time to redo everything, and they have Glow and Stacks and, you know, all of these people in the staff who are going to be working on it. But I just want to see them play against another elite squad and see what they have in the playbook outside of overwhelming utility hits on sites. I want to see if they can, you know, play a defaulty slow round as well as the best teams in the world as well.
Yeah.
Because if they can, this team is fucking bonkers.
This I think is this round where this site hit is just like, it's just very well executed. Yeah.
Yeah, and
the
look
timing, the timing on the support for RB backside, and then just circling around lamps. I mean, they're just, yeah.
And
they're good.
they also
are good.
They're not just skill diffing other teams in Korea, but they are skill diffing teams. I
mean, they're just diffing them on all regards.
Yeah, but I make that distinction because it's not like they're a messy team that's just shooting heads.
No.
They have a great plan, but they're also skill diffing people. So,
which is what makes an amazing team.
Yes, but if you get to Berlin and you can't skill diff, and then it's about, you know, your game plan, that's where I really want to see what is the ceiling of this team. Like, where is it? Because I don't think you're going to see, even in the finals when they play against F4Q, unless Bunny just starts judging them down. This team is not going to get tested until Berlin.
That's the hope, is that F4Q at least make it a competitive, like, grand final, just to, because I think that's why Vision Strikers looked the best. I think one of you guys mentioned it before, of like, you wanted Vision Strikers to lose before Reykjavik, so they came into those qualifying games for Masters 2 with a bit more of a point to prove, like, just to have them bounce back almost. I think sort of similar. I don't expect Vision Strikers to lose, but I'd like to see them get surprised by what F4Q do, dropping a map and just trying to up the ante yet again. Because you're right, it's like Vision Strikers to an extent effectively look like they're bench pressing like 5 kilograms. It's like, oh, I could do 100 reps of this, but there's no resistance there. It's not actually stopping you from improving. It's just effectively not enough of a challenge. So yeah, I think you're right. Like, Vision Strikers need to show what they're like when good teams make them look bad. That's the main thing.
I mean, that's just going to make things even more exciting for Berlin, though. Seeing if they get properly challenged. If we take a look at the Korean points standings, the VCT Champions point standings, we'll do a check-in with a bunch of the different regions here. Because you mentioned it earlier, Ryan. The real race is between NUTURN and Vision Strikers. If Vision Strikers make quarterfinals, they get 275 points, and they overtake NUTURN by 5 points. So they would get another 100 points for coming into the quarterfinals if they, you know, in Berlin. So they would overtake them. They would have 415 points, and they would be guaranteed into champions. That to me seems very likely. But F4Q, in order to make champions, would have to
win it.
They have to win it, and at that point, they get another spot for Korea anyway. So Vision Strikers are pretty much just going to champions at this point. It feels inevitable because unless they massively flop, it's just they are going to be the representatives, it feels. And NUTURN are going to have to fight through last chance qualifiers in all likelihood with F4Q, Dam1, and who knows whether they get out of that. TNL looking like they're on the outside. They are on the outside, and I think TNL are a fucking great squad too, so... That's a weird situation for Korea to be in, but they're still going to have at least one great representative at Champions, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously not the same depth of teams in Korea. I mean, there's, you know, outside of Vision Strikers, we're talking about that, there's maybe as well, like 4 teams that are reasonable competition.
I mean, those teams at the bottom that have points have folded as well. So it's
but I do think that they still have the best competition that they've ever had in the region.
Sure.
So
yeah, I agree with that as well. Yeah. Taking a look at the North American standings as well, just for a brief check-in. This one is really interesting to me because of the thing that we mentioned earlier on when we were talking to dusT, is that Cloud9 and Gen.G are tied, and we don't know what the tiebreaker is. If they had released the rules, one team would already be safe, because it's impossible for, like even if Rise and TSM both got a ton of points, there is still one of those teams from Cloud9 and Gen.G that will make it into last chance qualifiers. So
I hope it's a best of 3. I hope it's just a game between them.
Wait,
that'd be so much fun.
Wait.
So Gen.G and Cloud9 are tied at 50 points.
Yeah.
If Rise and TSM both do well,
yeah,
they both make 5th, 6th, something like that, or above, then Cloud9 and Gen.G, one of them will still go to last chance qualifiers. There's no way they can both be eliminated. Okay. So whatever the tiebreaker is, if the tiebreaker favors Cloud9, Cloud9 are safe. If the tiebreaker favors Gen.G, Gen.G are safe. One of those teams is in last chance qualifiers.
Okay.
We just don't know what the rules are.
Right.
That's the only reason that it's up in the air,
isn't it?
What, sorry?
It's like Schrodinger's like bracket.
Yeah, Schrodinger's qualifier. But in Southeast Asia, like I said earlier, it's based on stage 3 performance. That would mean Gen.G win.
Yeah.
But you could interpret that rule as being the last time you got points, like the most recent points you acquired, which would mean that Cloud9 are through. Or they might just run some BO3 or BO5 to qualify, like a pre-qualifier qualifier. Who the fuck knows?
I wouldn't be mad at just put them in a BO3.
I like that idea.
Get the last spot, duke it out.
I think that would be the fairest way of handling it, because otherwise someone's going to be annoyed.
Mini game gauntlet, like they do the snowball fight, and they do escalation, and they do Spike Rush BO3.
God, that would be hilarious, if only for the fact that it would tilt the players off the face of the fucking earth. But that tiebreaker is only relevant, and the admins only have to, tie their brains in a knot if both Rise and TSM do well. And so that's only likely to happen, in my opinion. I think that only can happen if Sentinels or Envy get eliminated, because they're on the same side of the bracket.
They're on the same side of the bracket, right.
So I think Sentinels or Envy would literally have to get eliminated early in the tournament for Rise and TSM to do well.
The prophecy.
Unless your prophecy fulfills itself, Wyatt, we're looking at like probably TSM, Cloud9, Gen.G making it to last chance qualifiers and Rise missing out. That seems the likely option. But Rise and TSM, in all likelihood, will play in the lower bracket for last chance qualifier. They will be playing, not necessarily to go to Berlin, but to get into last chance qualifier in that lower bracket round 1, which is happening either today or tomorrow. Let's check into EU, though, as well, and take a look at some of the numbers, because I believe EU is still all over the place here. There's a lot of teams that don't have many points yet. It's fucking wide open based on how they do in EMEA. I don't know whether you've done any calculations, Ryan, but it looks pretty wide open to me.
Yinsu has. It's basically like if you're a Fnatic fan, you're not cheering for Team Liquid, Gambit, or Ascend. I think everybody else realistically doesn't have a chance unless Oxygen Esports just go on a tear and come second place in Berlin. But like reasonable expectations, I think it's just Fnatic are trying to hold on to a top 2 spot. Like I think Gambit or Ascend are going to overtake them, potentially both. But it's like BBL, I think, are just done. Actually, no, because you've got G2 and stuff as well, right at the bottom that don't have points on the board yet. Like that's the crazy thing. NA just placing in challenge 3 puts you in the top 10. If you scroll down a little bit, Kurt, because I think you have like all of these teams as well that are looking to try and like climb up. So I think
so
BBL are
wow. So
they're
I mean,
absolutely toast.
G2
because
really
naturally some team has to do better than 30 points. Like it's only 3 teams, so even if it's like Giants, Navi, Supermassive Blaze, and somebody else, one person would go up. So G2, I think naturally G2 would get more points because they're higher up in. No, never mind, because they go down to the lower bracket at the same time. It doesn't help that the EMEA bracket is also super complicated to explain.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's a huge double elim bracket as well. But you can see here that there's a lot of teams still in the running for it. And even if we're talking about like an FPX, if FPX, I believe, made it to the quarterfinals of Berlin, if they qualify and then they make it to the quarterfinals, they're looking at an extra 175 points, and they already had 75 to begin with. So they'd be sat at, what that? They'd be, sorry, is it 275 actually for qualifying? I can't even fucking remember. But they're somewhere like immediately up to the top, even if they make quarters. They'd be in like the second position or something. So,
or a lot of FPX time is over.
It's all to play for. It's all to play for.
We only have 2 minutes.
We need like a Sylvia picture.
We can only talk about FPX for 2 minutes.
Yeah, so EU is just wide open. Now, onto our most important segment of the week. The most important segment every single week.
We're holding on.
We're holding.
Hold.
Ryan, do you know what it is?
Hold.
I don't know. I guess it's the Wyatt's Weekly Award, but I think I froze. I don't know how I looked, but it's the Berlin internet is scheisse. It's not great. So it's
you are correct though. You are correct. Oh, okay. It is indeed.
So excited.
Wyatt's Weekly Award.
Roll the tape. Hey bro, pass the sticks. It's Wyatt's Weekly Award. This week, Weekly Award. You already know who it's going to.
No, I don't. Who's it going to?
You could take a decent guess, but I'll just tell you. This week, the Weekly Award is going to Baby TW.
Baby TW.
Baby TW. Straight away. First week on Earth already gets a Wyatt's Weekly Award. Incredible.
That is
big congratulations to Bala.
Yeah, huge congrats.
Just the new Baby TW just dropped. The FaZe have a rough showing today. They'll be signing Baby TW, third baby, raucous out of the roster.
Baby TW.
Yep, the third baby on FaZe. Just depends on how they do today.
Oh, very good.
Big congrats to Bala.
Little baby Emery. I don't know whether they knew whether they were getting a son or a daughter dropped. But there it is, fresh new drop. That's awesome.
Exclamation mark drops. That's the command you put in chat.
I don't think gamers would spam it if they had the responsibility of another human to look after. If
they just spam it anyway. That's the thing. Like even when there isn't drops, they spam it. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of like stalks bringing babies to a lot of people still living in like.
Yeah, that's how it happens, right? Dogs deliver the babies.
Yeah, something like that. We can't. We have a young audience. We'll leave it at that for now. We won't get into the details.
All right. Well, that does it for our episode. We were going to try and make it pretty short, but we fucking failed as usual. So we've got one final thing to do, and that is to welcome the members. Hopefully, we'll have some kind of live stream going once we actually get to Berlin. In the meantime, we've been doing live co-streams on Wyatt's channel. I might turn mine on for this stream. Ryan's going to be doing casting for the EU ones as well. Have we got any more members, Mr. Curtis?
We have one brand new member, Chris Brown. Welcome to member.
Welcome to member.
And we have 2 rejoining members. You got Gabby Chaplin and Trey.
Welcome to member. Welcome back to member. Welcome back to member. All right, there we go. That does it for us this week. Thank you very much for tuning in. And go and catch the games that are happening live. Ryan, you're on the desk this week? Or next week, rather?
It's in an actual studio. Like, we're getting back to normal. So, yeah, it's the first. It's going to be a big event. Like, every game is going to be massive. And I can't wait to see what NA does tonight. Because, qualifying games today is pretty nuts.
Yes, that is crazy. By the end of today, we will know 2 teams that are going to Berlin from North America.
Envy.
You're fucking mental. All right, turn it off before he spouts more nonsense.